vacation, and Officer Cobb from the Cobb Police Department. I'm sorry, Officer Ott, I apologize. From the Cobb Police Department, giving us the Pledge of Allegiance. Those who are willing and able, please stand.
Gracious and Holy Father, we praise you and thank you for the day that you've given us. We praise you and thank you for the wonderful communities in which you have given us to live. Today, as this session begins, I pray all of your blessings on everyone here. I pray, Father, consideration and respect for everyone. I pray, Father, wisdom and well-being for the commissioners and the work and the decisions that they have to make. Especially, Father, bless their families as they work with the situations and the stress and the things that all of these commissioners deal with on a day-to-day basis as well. Help us all, Father, to be good citizens. Help us to be honorable in all that we do. And it's through Jesus that I ask this prayer. Amen.
Amen. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Hey, thank you, Pastor. Appreciate you coming this morning. Okay. You're waiting with breathless anxiety for you to begin the session here, John, so I'll turn the floor over to you.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and good morning. Today's hearing will be conducted with the following process and procedure. Each case will be called in numerical order. When each case is called, we would ask the applicant, please stand and raise your hand to show that they're in attendance. Then we're going to call to see if there's anyone here that's opposing the case at hand. We would ask that the opposition also stand and raise their hand so they can be counted for the record. After recognizing the applicant and any opposition, both parties will be asked to come forward to be sworn in so they can present testimony to the Board of Commissioners. The applicant will testify first, and then the opposition, if any, will testify second. It's important to note that each side only gets 10 minutes to state your case or concerns. There's not a process to reserve your time, and there's not a process for rebuttal. So convey all your information to the board within your 10-minute time period. Additionally, if more than one person wishes to speak on the case, you may want to coordinate with each other about what you're going to talk about, because each side only gets 10 minutes and you don't want to cover the same information twice. Then after both sides have had their 10-minute presentation period, the board will start to discuss the case at hand. From the discussion, they may ask one or more people to come back to the front for questions or comments. And after that, the board will make a decision to either approve or deny or hold or continue the case at hand. There are a number of cases on today's agenda which have been withdrawn and will not be heard today. First case is rezoning case Z59 of 2019, Davis Enterprises, LLC. This case has been withdrawn without prejudice by the Planning Commission, so we will not hear Z59 of 2019. Rezoning case Z61 of 2019, Vasco Properties, LLC. This case has been withdrawn without prejudice by staff, will not be heard today, so Z61 of 2019 will not be heard today. Special Land Use Permit number 12, 2019, Gunnison Tree Specialist Incorporated. This case was withdrawn without prejudice, will not be heard today. So SLUP 12 of 2019 will not be heard. Mr. Chairman and Board, there is one request to withdraw one of the cases on today's agenda. It's other business case number 67, Corner Point Partners LLC. The staff would ask the board to withdraw this case without prejudice.
Okay, let's see who that belongs to.
Commissioner Cupid.
Okay, Commissioner Cupid.
So moved. Second.
Discussion? Call the question. Passes 5-0.
Thank you, sir. There are a number of cases on today's printed agenda which have been continued or held and will not be heard at all today. First case is Special Land Use Permit number 13 of 2018, Kennesaw Jewish Center Incorporated. This case was continued by the staff until the December 17th, 2019 Board of Commissioners zoning hearing. So SLUP 13 of 2018 will not be heard today. Rezoning case Z43 of 2019, Embry Development Company, LLC. This case was held by the Planning Commission until the December 3rd, 2019 Planning Commission zoning hearing. So Z43 of 2019 will not be heard today. Rezoning case Z45 of 2019, WS Hotels LLC. This case was continued by the Planning Commission until the December 3rd, 2019 Planning Commission zoning hearing. So Z45 of 2019 will not be heard today. Rezoning case Z52 of 2019, WLM Holdings LLC. This case was continued by the staff until the December 17th, 2019 Board of Commissioners zoning hearing. So Z52 of 2019 will not be heard today. Rezoning case Z53 of 2019, Land Development Associates LLC. This case was continued by the staff until the December 3rd, 2019 Planning Commission zoning hearing. So Z53 of 2019 will not be heard today. Rezoning case Z56 of 2019, KO Management Incorporated. This case was continued by the Planning Commission until the December 3rd, 2019 Planning Commission zoning hearing. So Z56 of 2019 will not be heard today. Rezoning case Z57 of 2019, Eric Klein and Rita Klein. This case was continued by the staff until the December 17th, 2019 Board of Commissioners hearing. So Z57 of 2019 will not be heard today. Rezoning case Z62 of 2019, Embry Development Company, LLC. This case was continued by the staff until the December 3rd, 2019 Planning Commission zoning hearing. So Z62 of 2019 will not be heard today. Rezoning case Z63 of 2019, Bentley Residential Properties, LLC. This case was continued by the staff until the December 3rd, 2019 Planning Commission zoning hearing. So Z63 of 2019 will not be heard today. Rezoning case Z66 of 2019, Smith Douglas Homes. This case was continued by the staff until the December 3rd, 2019 Planning Commission zoning hearing. So Z66 of 2019 will not be heard today. Rezoning case Z67 of 2019, 20 Holdings LLC. This case was continued by the Planning Commission until the December 3rd, 2019 Planning Commission zoning hearing. So Z67 of 2019 will not be heard today. Land use permit number 23 of 2019, Renika Rogan. This case was continued by the Planning Commission until the December 3rd, 2019 Planning Commission zoning hearing. So LUP 23 of 2019 will not be heard today. SLEP 4 of 2019, A1 Auto Course LLC. This case was continued by the staff until the December 3rd, 2019 Planning Commission zoning hearing. So SLEP 4 of 2019 will not be heard today. Other business number 60, WLM Holdings LLC. This case was continued by the staff until the December 17th, 2019 Board of Commissioners zoning hearing. So other business number 60 will not be heard today. Mr. Chairman, Board, I did get a request late last week to continue one additional other business case. That would be other business case number 70 of 2019, David Stewart Gaskins. They would like to continue this until your December date, Mr. Chairman, Board.
Yes, I believe Mr. Garvis Sams is now representing other business 70 and has sent us a letter for continuance. This was a case, the 575 in Mills Ferry RSL, that was zoned, and this is, since Mr. Sams has just come on board representing Lennar Homes, he would like to ask for a continuance, and we need to meet with DOT, with Amy from DOT and the neighborhood.
Well said, Commissioner Garvis Sams on behalf of Lennar. We handled the underlying rezoning for another entity, and then Lennar was going through plan review, ended up having to come through other business. So getting some DOT comments late last week has put us in a position, so we simply need to address those to your satisfaction and satisfaction of the Bells Ferry Civic Association. So we
Right.
do request a continuance.
And they're agreeable. So I will make a motion that we continue other business 70 until the December zoning hearing.
Discussion? Call the question.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Ms. Burrow.
Mr. Chairman and Board, it's my understanding that one other case submitted a letter late last night asking for a continuance. That is SLEP 16, Baldwin Paving Company Incorporated. They did ask to continue the case until your, I believe, your February 2020 meeting to address some issues, Mr. Chairman and Board.
Thank you, Chairman. Is the applicant here today?
Is the applicant here for SLEP 16 Baldwin Paving Company?
Morning, Senator Tippins. Good to have you today with us.
My family is a landowner. We are not the applicant in the case. Baldwin Paving was the applicant. I thought they were going to send their attorney this morning. They had asked for additional time. I think there were some representations made in the planning commission that were not factually accurate. And they had asked for some time to meet with the neighborhood and those surrounding and anybody that may have concerns about the case. And they had asked for that the case be continued until February to be able to accomplish that. Given the holiday season, they didn't know what the availability of time would be for getting those meetings together. And their request was that it would be continued until February, and we would appreciate that extension.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I've had the opportunity to meet with Senator Tippins yesterday, and I am not able to oblige this request. This application has been submitted since August. I have not received any correspondence from Baldwin Paving other than this letter asking for a continuance. In speaking with Mr. Tippins, who is the landowner and not the applicant, I do not see there being any mediation of the interests on the applicant side or the community side for us to hold this case beyond today's. So I appreciate them at least taking time to ask, but this is entirely it's entirely late to be asking for a request on a matter like this and of this seriousness, based on the amount of concern that has been articulated, and Baldwin Paving should have had ample notice, at least from the Planning Commission, to be here today and to address these concerns. So at this time, I'm not obliged to honor that request.
Can we see if anyone is here for or against, to see if people showed up without notice?
There are people here in opposition today, and again, the landowner was aware that this case would be heard today. For Baldwin to send a letter in and not to have someone here who's present sends a very poor signal about their level of responsibility taken for this case, and I'm not willing to oblige this request today.
Obviously, we don't have a motion in front of us, but I just have a really hard time not supporting anyone, whether it's on either side, when a continuance or more time is asked for. So I know we're going to hear the case, but I have concerns about not granting someone an extension when they ask for it.
Yes, again, if somebody has a matter of this significance that has an application from August, and this is the request and their first time in reaching out to me, I am sure you would find this as much a concern as I do.
I have concerns, but once again, like I said, anytime anyone asks for more time because of the seriousness of any zoning case, I just think that they should be given it.
Yes, and I think this board knows typically I do that, but today, around these circumstances, I just can't. We will hear it at the very least after discussion today. If there comes opportunity for us to hold the case after it is heard, that is the most I'm willing to. Do today. But we will hear this case.
Okay, well, that sounds fair.
Yeah.
At least some options on the table. So, okay, so we'll go ahead and hear the case, all right? All right, now we have consent agenda items, right?
I have a few more announcements and then
Okay.
consent. Thank you. I would like to ask the people in today's audience, if you have a cell phone, please turn the volume off on your cell phones. When they ring, they do interfere with the broadcast and the presentations. Any person wishing to speak before the Board of Commissioners must file a campaign contribution disclosure statement. If within 2 years immediately preceding the filing of a rezoning application, a campaign contribution totaling $250 more was made to a current member of the Board of Commissioners. Additional information about this requirement is located on the table in the back of the room. I want to remind applicants, opposition, or any interested party that information is due to this board the Wednesday prior to this hearing. Any information submitted after the Wednesday due date may or may not be considered by this board at their discretion. And anyone participating in today's hearing who plans on presenting a video, PowerPoint, or other digital visual document should have presented that document to our communications department before the hearing started for a security screening, just to make sure there's no viruses on your thumb drive or other devices. These presentations in the future can also be emailed to presentations@cobbcounty.org. Mr. Chairman, Board, there is one request for an early head count. Can I get a show of people here who are opposed to rezoning case Z71 of 2018, Pope and Land Enterprises Incorporated? Please raise your hands.
Jason's got it.
Let the record show there's 60 people here against rezoning case Z71 of 2018. Can I also get a show of people here who are in support of rezoning case Z71 of 2018? Please stand and raise your hands. Let the record show there's 22 people here in support of rezoning case Z71 of 2018. And I would like to remind the opposition and people in support, please leave someone here to speak if you plan to leave early today. With that, Mr. Chairman, I'm ready to start the consent agenda. Thank you, sir. Cobb County Board of Commissioners zoning hearing consent agenda for November 19th, 2019. Starting with land use permit cases, LUP 22, Cecile Ferguson, requests a land use permit renewal for the purpose of backyard chickens poultry in land lot 344, the 16th district. The property is located on the south side of Blackwell Road, east of Mountain Ridge Drive. The Planning Commission recommends approval for 24 months, subject to the following conditions. Coop to remain where it is currently located, maximum of 4 hens. Is the applicant present? Let the record show the applicant is here. Is there anyone here opposed to LUP 22? Let the record show there's no one opposed. LUP 24, Jeff Randall requests a land use permit for the purpose of a temporary medical hardship to allow a recreational vehicle, RV, for housing in land lot 166 of the 16th district. The property is located on the southeast side of Remington Court, east of Trickham Road. The Planning Commission recommends approval for 12 months, subject to the following conditions. Proposed temporary construction letter received by the zoning division on August 1st, 2019. Location of the mobile home to be approved by the district commissioner. Family use only, the temporary home, the RV, to be removed once the family use is not needed anymore. And Stormwater Management Division comments and recommendations. Is the applicant present? Let the record show the applicant is here. Is there anyone here opposed to land use permit number 24? Let the record show there's no one opposed.
John, Commissioner Burrow has a question.
I need to go back to look 22 beforehand.
Okay.
Is that for 24 months?
Yes, it is.
That's the maximum we can.
Correct.
I just want to make sure, because we did it, last year, we approved it for 1 year, and I want to make sure it's 2 years this time.
Yes, ma'am. And moving into other business items on today's consent agenda. Other business item number 65 of 2019 is to consider a stipulation amendment for K.L. Porter, Trude, regarding rezoning application Z54 of 2019 for property located on the west side of Alabama Road, north of Sandy Plains Road in District 16, Land Lot 107. Staff recommends approval, subject to the following conditions. Number one, allowance of a consignment shop and an upholstery shop as summarized in the additional information document from K. Porter. And number two, all previous stipulations not in conflict with this amendment to remain in effect. Is the applicant present? Let the record show the applicant is here. Is there anyone here opposed to other business item number 65? Let the record show there's no one opposed. Other business item number 67 of 2019 is to consider a site plan and stipulation amendment.
Who withdrew that?
Oh, pardon me, that case has been withdrawn, so we don't need to hear that one. Other business item number 68 of 2019 is to consider a stipulation amendment for Jeff Liu regarding rezoning application Z16 of 2012 for property located on the west side of Johnson's Ferry Road, north of Lassiter Road in District 16, Land Lot 539. Staff recommends approval, subject to the following conditions. Number one, a nail salon is permitted on the property. Number two, water and sewer comments. And number three, all previous stipulations not in conflict with this amendment to remain in effect. Is the applicant present? Let the record show the applicant is here. Is there anyone here opposed to other business item number 68? Let the record show there's no one opposed.
Adios. Adios.
Other business item number 69 of 2019 is to consider a reduction of minimum public road frontage for lots A and B from required 75 feet to 37.5 feet per lot for Melvin E. Cook and Patricia H. Cook for property located on the south side of Allgood Road, east of Smithwood Drive, in Land Lot 884, the 16th District. Staff recommends approval, subject to the following conditions. Number one, road frontage permitted to be 37.5 feet for lots A and B. Number two, Cobb DOT comments contained in the other business packet. And number three, fire department comments contained in the other business packet. Is the applicant present? Let the record show the applicant is here. Is there anyone here opposed to other business item number 69? Let the record show there's no one opposed. Other business item number 70 of 2019 is to consider a site plan amendment. No, we continued that case too, so we're not going to hear that one. All right. Other business item number 71 of 2019 is to consider a reduction of lot size from required 40,000 square feet to 18,825 square feet for Leo's Landscaping Tree Service LLC for property located at the northwest corner of Hillside Avenue and Davis Road in Land Lot 491 of the 17th District. Staff recommends approval, subject to the following conditions. Lot size reduction for this lot to be 18,825 square feet is permitted. Stormwater management comments contained in the other business packet. Cobb DOT recommendations contained in the other business packet. Water and sewer comments contained in the other business packet. And all previous stipulations not in conflict with this amendment to remain in effect. Is the applicant present? Let the record show the applicant is here. Is there anyone here opposed to other business item number 71? Let the record show there's no one opposed. And that
Chairman, I
completes.
have a comment to add to that, too.
Sure.
Yes. For other business item 71, and I had this conversation with the applicant, I want to emphasize that the application provides that the property is for an office and for parking of work vehicles, and therefore there will be no tree grinding, cutting, or storage permitted on site.
Okay, we're good?
Okay.
All right, with that, I make a motion that we approve the consent agenda item as revised.
Second.
Discussion? Call a question. Passes 5-0. Hey, John, I believe
All
our
those-
first case is Z71.
Yes, sir. All those folks on consent agenda, you're free to go. Thank you. Okay, moving into the continued case agenda. Rezoning case Z71 of 2018, Pope and Land Enterprises Incorporated, request a rezoning from R20, RE4, GC, ONI, and NS to PVC for the purpose of a mixed-use development in land lots 364, 365, 428, and 429 of the 16th District. The property is located on the southwest corner of Chastain Road and Chastain Meadows Parkway, east of the I-575 off-ramp. The applicant is present. Earlier, there are 60 people here opposed and 22 people in support of the application. All those wishing to address the board, please come forward to be sworn in.
Okay, good morning, Kevin.
Good morning, Mr. Chairman and Commissioners. I'm Kevin Moore, here on behalf of Pope and Land Enterprises in this application for rezoning of 62 acres of property located at the interchange of I-575 and Chastain Road for a mixed-use development that we think is both of the highest quality and outstanding for this particular location. Speaking of the location, it is in the town center area. As you can see from this aerial where we pointed out the 62-acre parcel, it is not on the edge of the town center area. It's in fact well within it. The town center area is one of a large regional activity center. It's one of a large community improvement district that includes this property of 62 acres. Yes, as you continue west and as you can continue east and north, it turns into a residential area. But where this property specifically is located off the interchange, it is not. It is completely surrounded on the western, eastern, and southern sides by non-residential property, as well as non-residential property located also on the northern side of Chastain Road. As it relates to the site plan specifically, as we move into the details of this proposed project, you can see the property located at the interchange of 575 with Chastain Road across the northern portion of this property, Chastain Meadows along the eastern portion of the property. The property is proposed to be developed as a mixed use, completely integrated as a site plan by Pope and Land. If you start on the top left-hand side of this site plan, what we have proposed is a hotel with additional retail throughout the northern portion of the property, including a grocery store. That retail is one-story retail that provides specialty restaurants and specialty shops throughout that area. In addition, when you get to the right-hand side of the property, is a proposed two-story, 50,000 square foot professional office building. As you move interior to the project, you'll see the hashed area, and that's going to have the multifamily residential units that will be located above first floor retail, again, combining this into a true mixed-use integrated development. As you continue through the middle portion of the property, there are other multifamily buildings comprising a total of 300 multifamily units. As you continue south along the property, there is a senior apartment building consisting of a total of 180 senior homes in the one building, as well as you also finish off the project along its southern portion with a total of 179 townhomes, single-family townhomes. But what's also dominant in this site plan, and this is what we mean by truly integrating the uses, is also the use of recreation and play. Throughout the center of this project is the connectivity and creation and installation and continuation of the Noonday Creek Trail, which also includes a very centralized park location, not only for those that live there, but for those that visit there, as well as use that trail. One of the criticisms has been this project is too intense, it's too dense. Well, when you actually look at this project, you'll find that the open space or green space that's being provided totals just over 633,000 square feet of property that will be utilized as green space, park space, open space to be landscaped and used by not only the residents, but the guests that arrive here to shop, and as well as visit, as well as use the Noonday Creek Trail throughout this proposal. And that's what this proposal looks like. When we've been criticized for the density of this project, what you actually see is the vision of Pope and Land to create a truly integrated mixed-use community where that trail is extended throughout, where you don't see the dominance of buildings projecting over this entire area. This does not change the character of the area. What it does is build the character of the area into the future. And as we go through these perspectives of what this project will look like in that Central Park, that continues each and every time you look through these renderings, the perspective you are gaining is one of a project that truly belongs on the 62-acre parcel. Throughout the renderings and throughout the perspectives, that is what has been put out there. That is what has been proposed by Pope and Land. To make that point even clearer, when you get to the corner of Chastain and Chastain Meadows Parkway, this is the perspective. It's not dominated by buildings. It's not dominated by some huge, intense, densified development. What you see is a project from this standpoint that visually protects the area and stabilizes the area, both from an economic standpoint and from a visual standpoint. Why support this application? We believe there are 5 critical reasons. The plan presented is the highest and best, but it's also the most quality that can be provided for this location. Apartments, which we have been criticized for, are actually critical to the success of a mixed-use development, as has been repeated over and over again in the metro area. The proposed rezoning to the PVC category is consistent with the Community Activity Center and the broad approval and support this application has received from various agencies as well as the business community. We have reduced this project by over 45% since its initial inception, and Pope and Land and Quintus are absolutely the best development partners for this project. Again, we have transitioned this project initially from a 190,000 square foot office building to a 50,000 square foot office building. The heights of all buildings have been reduced to 4 stories across the project, and we've eliminated parking decks, all to address the density and intensity of this project. Where is this project located? Again, it's located in the Town Center CID area and is one of 4 key destinations in that Town Center area. You'll see the blue asterisk. That is a key destination, and that is this property. Cobb County Community Development Agency has itself recognized this, and it has determined that this project is consistent with the plans and goals and objectives of the Town Center Area CID LCI plan and study that was adopted by them. ARC, the Atlanta Regional Commission, upon its review of this project, had positive recommendations, noting that it's in the regional center and regional employment corridor, that its intensity aligns with the regional development guides, and the land use mix is consistent in terms of intensity and density. The traffic study that was performed and submitted to Greta received approval and recommendation of approval from the Georgia Regional Transportation Authority. Of particular note, in the build scenario, the intersections, all 13, would have a level of service from A to E in year 2032. If we don't build this project, those same intersections have levels of service ranging from C to F. Specifically, Greta found that any improvements to Chastain Road at Bells Ferry Road could be the additional turn lanes or adjust signal timing. That's an either or from Greta at that particular location. And lastly, and also most importantly, this is a $333 million project that is expected and would have annual property tax revenue of over $4.7 million to Cobb County. It's not a project we should easily dismiss or reject. Rejecting this project is rejecting a $333 million project. It's rejecting $4.7 million in annual revenue. It's rejecting the Town Center LCI study. It's rejecting the ARC review and recommendations. It's rejecting the recommendation of approval from Greta. It's rejecting the Town Center CID recommendation of approval. And we ask that you not reject this proposal and instead respectfully approve this rezoning application. The rest of my time I'm going to reserve and yield to others who want to speak in support. Thank you.
Okay, and given the magnitude of this application, we're going to go ahead and extend the public comment period to 15 minutes for both sides. So,
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Sure.
That's very much appreciated.
Good morning. I'm Tracy Rathbone-Steiff, representing the Town Center CID. I want to remind you all the role of a CID. We are the voice of the commercial property owners in our district. These 275 owners are our primary stakeholder. They represent 494 properties, totaling more than $1.8 billion in value. Our owners pay more than $25.3 million in property taxes to the county and CID each year. We have worked closely with each of you and your predecessors on various initiatives over our 20-plus year history, and together we've made significant improvements for our community. Today, from the CID's perspective, I'd like to highlight a few points related to this decision that could have lasting implications for years to come. The Town Center District is ripe for redevelopment. The shifting demographics of the dynamic submarket have resulted in a necessity for quality, integrated development that includes diverse housing. To keep pace with competitive markets and maintain a healthy submarket, the CID must add new housing options with direct proximity to jobs, infrastructure, amenities, and services. The Z71 project achieves this mix of uses, including townhomes, apartments, office, upscale, retail and dining, green space, a dog park, and the extension of the Noonday Creek Trail. This type of mixed-use, interconnected development is vital to our district and our county's economic sustainability. The Town Center and Cumberland improvement districts remain vibrant centers in our county, supporting billions of dollars in assets, attracting companies, employees, residents, visitors, which in turn keep our schools strong and positively impact both commercial and residential values. These districts were created for this exact type of development that's proposed today. Through Metro Atlanta's urban and suburban areas, walkable centers have attracted higher quality, safer, and more sustainable retail and restaurants that have garnered higher rent rates and values than drivable suburban real estate. Additionally, seniors and young professionals have created demand for these multi-use centers over the last decade as they seek a lower maintenance, more amenity-rich lifestyle. The question today is not whether the property will be developed, it's how the property will be developed. The proposed uses are compliant with the regulations of a community activity center and the proposed rezoning category of planned village community. Mixed-use residential development flattens traffic demand during peak periods. The result of the Z71 traffic study echoed this and identified areas for infrastructure improvements, all of which are included in the project or will serve the project and surrounding areas. Without a comprehensive planned development, this site could be easily parceled off and no new infrastructure required under the current zoning, which would increase traffic and congestion. Denial could potentially undermine decades of studies and planning, creating an area much like Canton Road Corridor, which would be possible under the current zoning. This is not our community nor our county's best interest. However, the exact opposite would be true with the approval of Z71. Thoughtful, visionary planning and leadership is needed now to ensure the risk is mitigated and the strength of Town Center remains intact. Rejection of this rezoning is in direct conflict with the CID Master Plan, Cobb County 2040 Comp Plan, ARC's Regional Plan, and the Town Center LCI. During our master planning process, commercial property owners, community leaders, and residents, including those who now state they are opposed to the project, agreed on 4 key development areas for Town Center that Kevin showed earlier, including this parcel. The other 3 areas are already in the pipeline for redevelopment, but could stall as a result of this decision. Community development is a partnership between proactive leaders and developers, and it requires trust and vision. Investors are anxiously awaiting the decision of Z71, which will set a precedent in our district. If denied, it could be detrimental to the future redevelopment of aging parcels. Respected developers, many of whom have already reached out to the CID about new opportunities, will look to other areas to create master plan communities and may see Cobb as unsupportive and undesirable for new investments. With Z71, quality developers who've spent decades investing in our community have proposed a $330 million thoughtful master plan that will bring more than $4.7 million in additional tax revenue to our county and region. This decision will have a lasting impact. Thank you all for your time.
If you look at the clock on the podium there, that's how much time you have left.
Wow, okay. Well, good morning, Commissioners. My name is Alan Korenkowski, and I live at the Enclave at Laura Creek. I'm a proud Cobb County resident, and I wanted you to know that one of the reasons that we moved to where we did is because directly because of the benefits the CID has advanced. Specifically, I'll cite Big Shanty Road, the Noonday Creek Trail, as well as the toll road entrance off of Big Shanty Road. Our subdivision is 1.5 miles from the Z71 subject property, and we're directly impacted. Now, I've engaged the opposition. I have read the plans. I've looked at the studies, and I believe that our neighborhood's going to be impacted in a good way. The 60-acre master plan is preferable over piecemeal development. There's a wide variety of new housing options at a variety of price points for a variety of ages, and it includes rentals as well as sales, and our community needs that. The Noonday Creek Trail is something our family uses routinely, and extending it into this area is something that we believe will only make it more useful. And the new shops and restaurants are going to keep my money in Cobb County because we're excited about it, and the restaurants and shops that they bring in are the type that I'm interested in spending money. There's numerous examples throughout Metro Atlanta where properties that are developed as multi-use improve property values. And of course, as a taxpayer, I appreciate seeing the increased tax revenue that it's going to bring to the county and the school system. I really can't imagine a better use for the property than what's proposed, and I hope that you'll take my voice into consideration. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay. Those in opposition, remember you have 15 minutes, so make sure you talk among yourselves to allot your time appropriately. With that, please let us know who you are and where you live, and you have the microphone.
Good morning, Chairman Boyce and County Commissioners. My name is Erin Mulgrew, and I'm with the Bells Ferry Civic Association. We ask that the applicant's request for a change to PVC zoning be denied. We're submitting a petition against this mega development, which over 1,400 area residents and voters have signed, paper and online. As the density of this project remains at 10.5 units per acre, double the maximum allowable, the petitions stand. The developer is asking for more commercial square footage than exists at Cumberland Mall. If this initial phase of the project is rezoned, a precedent will be set for the remaining 30 acres to be rezoned the same category. Even though the developer has requested a change to PVC, it still does not fit this category, which requires commercial on the interior. Instead, a 4-story, 200-room hotel and retail are exterior, fronting Chastain Road and across from neighborhoods. Also, this application would require 3 major variances per staff comments. The future land use map, which was recently reviewed, is designated as CAC, specifically for residential and low-rise office. The applicant has still not disclosed the percentage of impervious surface nor submitted elevations. The green space required is over 8 acres. However, they're proposing 2, which includes their detention pond. There are already 16 hotels, 27 apartment complexes with 700 vacancies in a 2-mile radius. According to Pope and Land's website, the only other comparable mixed-use development that they've initiated was acquired in 2008 and remains stalled for over a decade. If the commissioners approve Z71, they are obligated to fund the road improvements in the Georgia Regional Transportation Authority Notice of Decision. This includes significant road improvements which would require the widening of Bells Ferry Road. PC Chair Williams stated the county does not have the funds for this, nor has the developer offered to contribute. The BFCA remains resolutely opposed to Z71. Over 1,400 nearby voters agree and have signed the petition against this development. We support the recommendation of the Planning Commission and county staff that this should be denied. Thank you.
Thank you. Good morning.
Good morning, Chairman Boyce and County Commissioners. My name is Jessica Berry. I'm a homeowner in Chastain Lakes, and I'm also an attorney. I speak on behalf of Chastain Lakes and Brookhaven of East Cobb. Chastain Lakes consists of 221 homes, the vast majority of which are homeowners. Brookhaven of East Cobb is an active adult senior living development consisting of nearly 100 homes. For these residents and voters, their homes represent their primary investment for their retirement. Because I moved to my neighborhood for a better life, I personally felt it very important to speak to you today. Since the majority of both subdivisions lie 1,000 feet of the proposed development, we have standing to be heard today, to appeal, and to file suit in this matter. We strenuously urge you to deny this zoning application. Today I focused on three of the major concerns, namely suitability, traffic, and safety concerns. First, this development is not suitable for the area when taking into account the current use and development of adjacent and nearby properties. The adjacent and nearby properties are indeed residential in nature, contrary to Council's assertions to the contrary today. Our position has been underscored by Cobb County staff, who have twice recommended to deny this petition, saying, quote, "It is staff's opinion that the applicant's request will adversely affect the existing use or usability of adjacent or nearby property." Specifically, this development is a 62-acre multi-use complex that includes hundreds of rental apartments, inadequate green space, and a 4-story hotel that faces Chastain Road and overlooks the Chastain Lake subdivision. Contrary to the request of the county, over the course of this protracted process, the developer ignored feedback from our subdivisions and the community. Personally, I did not move from New Jersey to literally live across the street from what is effectively a mega mall and densely packed apartments. Our residents sought something different when we moved to our neighborhoods, something better. We deserve it, and we demand it today. I understand that the developer has emphasized that the Town Center Improvement District is in favor of this proposal. However, I point out that certain TCID board members also double as principals in the development. Accordingly, they have a financial interest in this development being approved, whereas we, the homeowners and voters of Chastain Lakes and Brookhaven, have a personal interest in this matter. Our livelihoods are at stake. The existing character of these neighborhoods would be destroyed by this development. It really is that serious. The second major area of concern I address today is traffic. Chastain Lakes is already burdened with frequent illegal U-turns and shortcuts through our subdivision. This will only increase if a 62-acre mixed-use development is dropped literally across the street from our homes. KSU already attracts 45,000 cars per weekday, the equivalent of a sold-out Braves game. This development will bring up to 25,000 more cars per day. Our neighborhoods should not be burdened with this inconvenience and trespass. Our infrastructure cannot service this level of traffic. We are residential neighborhoods, not expressways. Last, this proposal raises major safety concerns. Our police force is severely understaffed, and Fire Station 16 is already one of the busiest. Adding an influx of residents and visitors to the area will only hinder the fire and police department's ability to do their very important jobs. Should our safety really be jeopardized to this degree? In closing, I respectfully remind you that the homeowners and voters of Chastain Lakes and Brookhaven of East Cobb are vehemently against this proposal, which is not suitable for the area and which will adversely affect our property values, standard of living, and will drastically reduce our quality of life. Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Good morning, Commissioners. My name is Walter Bryant, and I'm here speaking for Washington Investments. We own a two-story office building in Resurgence Park, which is straight across the street, Chastain Road, from this development. All of our, not all, but most all of our tenants and our employees and our visitors that come to our office park come from 575. As well as all people who come and go out of Resurgence Park from 575, based on what time of the day it is. We have to go down to either Chastain Lakes or Chastain Meadows and do a U-turn to get back to our office park. We have no direct access. And what this has happened is over the last year or two, this has become increasingly more difficult every day, as well as more dangerous because of the traffic that's increased there. And we just feel like if you put a development as dense as this is going to be right there across the street, and everybody's going to be using those two interchanges, it's going to be impossible to get in and out of our office park, which obviously will decrease the value of the buildings. So we respectfully ask that you reject this demand. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, sir. Anyone else like to speak in opposition? Okay, seeing none.
Okay, good morning, everyone. Before I get into my comments and ask for input from the rest of the board, I'd like to call up Amy Diaz with DOT. And I'd also like to submit for the record the DRI and Greta report and her email addressing comments with regard to that.
Amy Diaz, DOT.
Wait a minute. No. Go ahead. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Which part would you like me to start with? It's a very big subject.
Just pick one.
Just pick, all right.
The email with the level of service and the points that you made regarding that.
Very well. I'll begin because it got stated again today that if this project goes in, that it improves the level of service to the level of service E or better that they showed. That is based on their traffic report. They did an updated one, and this is the one I'm going to quote from, in July of 31. July 31st of this year. And so that's the most recent one that we have. That improvement includes the traffic study. When you're looking at their build condition, what they say will improve to level service E or better, includes Chastain Road. Install a second eastbound left turn lane on Chastain Road with a second northbound receiving lane on Bells Ferry Road. Install a second northbound through lane on Bells Ferry Road. At Chastain Road at George Busby Parkway, install a second westbound left turn lane on Chastain Road. Chastain Road at I-75 southbound ramps, install a second southbound right turn lane on the interstate ramp with one yielding controlled and the other continuing to operate as free flow. It also includes at Chastain Road at Chastain Meadows Parkway, install right turn permissive and overlap signal phasing for the north right turn movement on Chastain Meadow Parkway. The only one of these improvements that has been agreed to in their most recent stipulation letter is the last one. So the roadway widening on Bells Ferry Road and then additional turn lanes on Chastain Road and on the interstate ramp are not agreed to by the developer and would be placed as a burden upon the county to reach those level of service, E or better level service. The Greta, Georgia Regional Transportation Authority, reviewed this development, and their notice of decision included the Bells Ferry widening to install the second northbound through lane on Bells Ferry Road. The opposition has brought up the fact that they also included an or condition that if the signal timing can achieve a level of service E or better, that improvement is not required. Where that is true, the no build, with this development not in place, the analysis from their July 31st memo shows that at a level service F with 250 plus seconds of delay per vehicle. Since that is the condition without this development, and that is the best signal timing that can be put in with a no-build condition, then there's no way that I see as feasible that the level of service timing can be changed to reach a level of service E without the roadway improvements. If this development goes in and those roadway improvements or level of service is not achieved, then we are in violation of the Greta Notice of Decision. And that could affect future funding for the county.
Thank you, Amy. Anybody else have any questions for Amy? No. Thank you.
Amy, I'm sorry, one question.
No problem.
Yeah, I'm sorry. Reviewing DRI, did you agree with all the recommendations that were stated within there?
With the Greta Notice of Decision or the recommendations in the traffic study?
The traffic study, the recommendations of the traffic study.
Yes, the one I admit we focused on the most was Bells Ferry, because that is a very big, and it has some resistance we've seen in the county to that widening. I do agree that that widening is needed, especially if this development goes in. The other turn lanes, the only one we didn't focus extremely on was the the southbound ramps from I-75. That one we could look at again, but the other ones we looked at very closely and do agree that they would be needed.
And did anybody in DOT price out the recommendations?
No, because we approached the developer to talk about pricing, and then what we usually do is once we get an agreement from the developer that they would give toward that, then we do an estimate on how much that improvement would be. We didn't get a response from the developer on that, so we have not estimated what the cost is, but it's high.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Amy. I will make my comments. As all of you here know, this case has been continued literally for a year. It was first filed in August of 18 and came before Planning Commission, was scheduled to come before Planning Commission a year ago, November 18, and it's been continued ever since. The neighbors, surrounding neighbors, Bells Ferry Civic, Vintage Club, Pine Tree Civic, Weatherburn Woods, Brookhaven of East Cobb, in the immediate approximate area have been very diligent in working on this case and for the past year plus. And I thank everybody involved for working with us on this, and Planning Commission as well. The intensity and density of this proposed development is too high and inconsistent with the character of the surrounding area. There have been repeated requests for the amount of impervious surface that this development will have. We've never been advised of that amount upon numerous requests. The applicant was given direction at the PC meeting in August of this year to remove apartments and meet with the Bells Ferry Civic Association. Neither of those were done. The DRI and Greta report advised that off-site road improvements were required prior to the project's completion. The developer is reluctant to pay for this, and the county cannot, nor should we, for a private development. The amount of traffic for this proposed development will adversely impact the level of service in the area and place a burden on I-575 and Chastain Road. And you heard comments from our DOT regarding that. I'd like to read the variances, which is in the staff analysis, page 32. Number 1, reduce the required amount of open space, parks, or other recreational or public uses from 362,450 square feet to 86,000 square feet. The detention area is shown in the park area, which reduced the park area by an estimated 20%. Staff estimates there is only enough open space for 156 residential units. Number 2, allow commercial uses not to be located in the center or interior of the project. Number 3, allow the net density to not be generally consistent with the density recommended for the property via the county comprehensive plan. Community activity centers do allow higher density residential uses to serve as transition uses, but these are normally capped with the maximum density of 5 units per acre. The density for this proposal is 10.54 units per acre. So it's over double the amount allowed. Additionally, the one component that could be used for the transition use townhomes are not near the senior residential units across Chastain Road to provide for a transition. So you can see the variances would adversely affect the surrounding area. We know that something will eventually be built on these 62 acres, but it needs to be the right fit and appropriate for the surrounding area. This is not. We know Popen Land has a good reputation and does quality work, but again, this development is too intense. I'd also like to read from staff analysis number E, or letter E, page 43. Whether there are other existing or changing conditions affecting the use and development of the property which give supporting grounds for either approval or disapproval of the zoning proposal. It is staff's opinion that there are existing and changing conditions affecting the use and development of the property which give supporting ground for denying the zoning proposal. The proposal is not in accordance with the Cobb County Comprehensive Plan, which delineates this property to be within a community activity center. The area is well-defined and characterized by residential uses and low-intensity non-residential uses. While the requested PVC zoning district is established to provide locations for mixed-use developments, this intensive development with 480 rental units is better suited for those areas delineated as a regional activity center. The area east of 575 and north of Big Shanty Road is characterized as single-family, fee-simple residential development. Placing all the rental units so close to owner-occupied units may cause a decline in property values and a decline in the desirability of the area for families. As you know, Planning Commission recommended denial of this at their November meeting. Staff has recommended denial with some of the points I just read to you. So I will make a motion, or do we want to hear from the board?
Go ahead and make the motion and
Okay.
have further discussion.
I'll make a motion to deny Z71.
We have a second? I'll second it for discussion purposes. Okay. Any other board members like to make a comment? Mr. Cupid? Thank you.
I can only imagine all that is upon you in weighing this application, Commissioner. I'd like to share with you that I'm inclined to support your motion today. I also recognize that this is a quality development that's attractive. It certainly is desirable for many areas, not just in our vicinity. I'm sure it could be an attractive development anywhere in our metro area. I think what's a question here today is whether or not it fits here. And there's some thoughts on either side that it could be or may not be. I think in looking at the area, as you stated, north is residential. The property is also surrounded by CAC and the interstate. So it's unlikely that you're going to find low intense or less intense development immediately adjacent to the interstate. That's not always the case, but typically you try to buffer those very intense uses with with commercial for leading to residential property. So I see some argument for it developing commercially. And I think you do and others do, which is why there is a CAC designation as a future land use. In listening to Amy's analysis, I found that quite compelling to learn of the traffic impacts and how it would be almost impossible to mitigate the challenges of traffic in this area without there being resolve in the development of the roads. And it's one thing to see a good development, but the residents who are there have to live with traffic as it is today, and they will have to live with the traffic once this is developed. And so while you can see a strong quality development on paper, at the end of the day, you have new residents who are loving to live there, and you're having existing residents who foresaw those challenges and would have to deal with that. I see this being a strong development, again, not just for it being attractive, as was shared. It could generate significant tax dollars for Cobb. My misfortune of going through the budget process every year is that even when we have very high tax generating properties, if we never take advantage of the tax generation of those properties, then we find ourselves in a tough situation as if that property were never developed. And that's really a policy decision beyond that of a developer for the board to be more responsive to. But at least from a general fund perspective, it's hard to appreciate good development when we don't make policy decisions that allow us to take advantage of that beyond the SPLOST. The sales tax generation, I think, could be very strong in supporting capital development for the school system and also for the county, and I think that's a plus. And so these are things I'm weighing on both sides. One comment that particularly struck me, that I wrote it down here, was that community development is a partnership with development and community. And that's something I probably will continue to echo as I weigh cases and deal with residents and applicants. I'm not aware of all that transpired over the past year and the applicant working with the community. And I always don't like to defer to who turns out, because I happen to represent a district where people are very hard pressed to find the time to come to zoning meetings. And so what you may see be present may not always in actuality be reflective of what the community's interests or concerns are. But in weighing the amount of correspondence received and the voices of the community who have not just been active on this case, but in prior development cases, I don't know if the level of partnership that's aspired to in that statement of community development being that partnership has been reached for the residents who are in that area. And that's something that I'm going to encourage applicants when they come to me to really emphasize as they move into the area. We have a county that places a significant value on single-family residents, and it helps to stabilize Cobb and make us an attractive place. I think that there's been some challenges when we have apartments introduced for development. There are statements made that having apartments next to single-family residential would reduce the value of single-family residential. I just don't know where you put multifamily residential then. Does it go into an island of commercial never to be seen or touched by single-family residents? When we have our future land use or when we approach zoning, we always look, for an ideal sense, you look for step-down zoning of intensities. Having high-density residential is sometimes looked as a buffer between single-family and commercial. So if it's a buffer between those uses, at some point, it gets next to single-family residential property. I'm going to hear a case in District 4 where residents are very concerned about their property values. And I take this into heart, the way that District 4 has developed and the sensitivity or sometimes lack of sensitivity to our investment in our primary value. But I just find it very difficult to massage the idea that multifamily doesn't have a place next to single-family residential. So, you know, I've weighed a lot of different thoughts in hearing the matters of this case. Overall, you know, the interest, I believe, lies with you as the district commissioner and your representation of the residents who are there. I believe this could be a strong development in Cobb. But in hearing the arguments today and knowing all that you do to try to mediate things on all sides and represent your constituency, I have to lean towards supporting you in this development, knowing that, again, this is a quality, strong development. And I don't know what's going to be the fallout. I mean, and this is going to be the burden that this board will have to face if we're going to lose other potential commercial developers, because when we have quality development before us, we don't develop in that manner. But it's not always that cut and dry. You know, there's always give and take in matters. And you know, I must say, for today, for me, the interest of the commissioner and the residents who spoke in opposition just outweigh the other points that have been made today.
Okay, thank you, Commissioner. Commissioner Gamble, no comments? Commissioner Ott?
I know this may have come as a surprise to some, but there is some things that Commissioner Cupid said that I agree with. We are at
He
opposite
always
ends of
agrees
the
with me, he
dais
just
here.
doesn't want to admit it.
I am too concerned about the message that this sends to the development community for future other areas of the county that are, you know, really want to have new development come in. This is clearly a quality development. The different components, I think, would work together. It's very obvious from listening to the folks in opposition, you know, and looking at the map. Can you put the GIS map back up there, please? And looking at this map, I think it kind of tells a little bit of the story, and it also, I think, points to the mixed message that the county is giving the development community. Clearly, there's a very high density of individual residential properties. You can see it just by all the different lots to the north and to the east of the proposed development. But on the future land use map, which is what we're looking at here, which is how the commission and the county is supposed to signal to not only the people that are moving into neighborhoods, but also to the property owners that have undeveloped land or land that's potential for future development as to what the county's thoughts are for an area. We have the Regional Activity Center over here on the left of 575, and we have a CAC on the right-hand side, which is a fairly intense level of development and would be considered a transition down from the Regional Activity Center. And then there's this very small medium-density residential, the mustard color. It would seem to me that we're sending a mixed message to the folks that would be potential developers saying, it's okay to build pretty intense development very close to these homes. And I don't think, in listening to Commissioner Burrow and the people that live in the area, that that's really what the message should be. And it would seem to me, and my suggestion to you, Commissioner Burrow, is that the future land use map, I think that if indeed the community feels the way they do, which is pretty obvious with 60 people here, and you feel the way you do, then this map needs to be changed, because it's sending the wrong message, I think, to quality developers like Pope and Land. You know, they came in with something, okay, it's not, RRC is not allowed in the CAC, and so they're asking to go a little bit higher, but regional activity centers are along interstates. And, in the past, the county has supported development, and like I said, I think Commissioner Cupid's right in the fact that there is the potential for hurting the opportunity for, quality development to come to the other parts of the county, especially in South Cobb and some of the other areas that are ripe for redevelopment. So I just think it's important to note that this map kind of says, I think, the wrong thing, and you should consider if the community wants something different, to change it to more reflect the direction that the county intends for this area.
Commissioner Burrow, you said you had another comment?
Yes, with regard to one of Commissioner Cupid's comments, from the emails and messages we have received, as of 5 o'clock yesterday, I had received 88 in opposition and 7 in support. And of the ones that, most of them, the majority of them did give their addresses, and they were all in the vicinity, the Bells Ferry area, and mostly Chastain Lakes and Brookhaven, which are within the 1,000 feet notification rule. Also, it's my understanding, and I believe I saw Jason Gaines here, the land use on this was recently, maybe in the last few years, revised to a CAC for office, was it not? Or when was that done? Because it's obvious that the west side of 575 is all RAC, which this development would be better suited in a RAC, but it's in a CAC.
All right. First of all, good morning, Jason Gaines, Cobb Community Development. Yes, there are it's a special area policy guideline that does dictate office use for a series of land lots, one of which happens to be the location of this site. I can't pinpoint exactly when that was done. It was done prior to me being in this role. Staff's looking for that information now because I've been on the phone with them, but it hasn't been, it's been done since or prior to my arrival to this position. So, but yes, there's language in the comprehensive plan that does limit it to office use.
Right, okay. Thank you. Okay.
Commissioner Gamble, you said you had a comment?
Yes, I do. In reference to the future land use being a guide, yes, it is a guide, But also, when we have development, the developers usually have to do infrastructure improvements. So what struck me during this conversation is that we attempted to have that conversation with the applicant to do road improvements that would be required to handle this development, and they were non-responsive. And even though the future land use map might suggest this type of development, if the developers aren't willing to do the infrastructure improvements that are required, it should not become a burden on the county and the taxpayers to do so.
Okay, thank you. I've got a couple questions. Who's here from community development for the land use map, the comprehensive 2040 plan?
Jason and Jessica.
Jason, one of the emails that I received said that this property in the 2040 plan is designated an environmentally sensitive area.
There is some
What does that
language.
mean?
There's not necessarily a definition in our comprehensive plan for that, but it does mention in that same special area policy guidance that there are some environmentally sensitive areas within that general vicinity. Again, there's a series of land lots that are directly referenced, and there are some environmentally sensitive lands within that. Wetland, low-lying, hard to develop, just that's a general description, but yes, that is mentioned.
So what message are we sending to anybody when we put that in our 2040 plan?
That it should be considered when development proposals brought forward.
Okay, so does that mean that, does that apply to density or what? I'm not quite sure. I mean, it's in the plan. So that tells me, if I, as a layman, I'm looking at, well, that means that we got to be careful about the kind of development we put on that land that is responsive to, to our desire to protect the environment or that specific environment.
It could refer to density, but it could also refer to the amount of improvement that's done to the land. When I say improvement, I mean introducing infrastructure to an undeveloped site. So pavement, water and sewer, storm water, so on and so forth. So when you improve property, that's something that would be considered if you have environmentally sensitive lands. Because there's almost there's an engineered solution for just about anything. But I think the comprehensive plan was trying to convey that there needs to be some consideration of that. And again, our comprehensive planning process is one that is very open and full of public involvement. So, a lot of the recommendations that came forward were brought forward by members of the community and were put forward by staff and co-signed by the Board of Commissioners.
Okay, so looking at this parcel, would the degree of the impervious surface that was generated, and perhaps stormwater is best answer to this, would that have an impact on the discharge into the Noonday Creek?
Yeah, I prefer to yield to Mr. Braden to answer that question.
Is he here?
No, I'm not here.
Yes, Dave Braden with the Stormwater Management Division. The question is if higher levels of impervious coverage would contribute to additional runoff to Noonday Creek Basin. That is true. We have not had any, as Commissioner had mentioned, we have not had any estimate of what, because it was basically a planning layout, what the actual impervious coverage would be. Typically, stormwater management comments when we get to plan review are if you are exceeding the allowable impervious coverage for the underlying zoning by more than 5%, we make you not just do what our code requires for stormwater management, but do additional measures on top of that to mitigate that increase. So that would have been our comment if this happened. But of course, the more impervious coverage you have, the more runoff you're going to have. And hopefully, if you have an opportunity to mitigate it, then try to do that, which would be what we would recommend.
Let me just jump on this.
Sure.
All right, but Dave, I think that I want to clarify just so people understand how your office works. Yes, obviously, anytime you take pervious land and make it impervious, you're going to have an increase on
Al-
stormwater
always,
runoff.
no matter what, that's right.
It
That's just
doesn't work any
development.
other way. But what your office does is, it is not like this water is going from this impervious right into the creek.
Oh, yeah.
Because you require detention or retention, which is the whole reason. And so what happens is, there may be an increased flow from the standpoint of a longer period of time that water is flowing because it's metered out, but you don't allow an increased volume.
Other way around, we do not allow an increase in flow and peak discharge.
Well, the rate.
The rate, that's right.
Right,
You
what
have-
I'm
you
saying
have-
is.
You have to release
the
it at the
rate's
same
gonna
rate
have
as
to
the
re- yeah,
undeveloped.
what
That's
I'm
right.
saying is, the rate's gonna remain the same as to what it is.
That's
So the water may have to be retained longer in the detention or the retention.
In many cases,
pond.
much longer, that's right.
Right, and so that, but it may be that if water ran for a day after a rainstorm, it might run for 3 days.
Yeah, right.
But you're not going to, it's not like the Noonday Creek is gonna flood because all this extra water. Because
And in
that's
addition-
what you don't allow.
That's right. And in addition to extra detention volume to make those peak discharges even less than what the current discharge from the site is, we also increased the water quality volume, which allows a better treatment of the runoff from the site.
So, but for this application, you don't know how big the detention
Don't know,
facilities have
that's
to
right.
be, because you don't know how much impervious surface there was.
That's correct.
So how do we make an informed decision about that unless we have all the facts at hand? That's a rhetorical question. I don't expect you to answer it, all right?
That's your job, not.
Yeah, okay. Well, thank you for reminding me of that. I appreciate it. All right, thank you, both Dave and Jason. I appreciate that. Yeah, okay, Jason?
Jason, I have a question for you. Let's come under the bright lights just a little bit longer. There's been some question about the future land use map and its appropriateness. This site is in a CAC, and staff based its analysis on that, providing that the proposed development was too intense. And in comments made, there was some discussion about residential density permitted under CAC and what's being requested. I'd like for you to flesh that out for me a little bit more so I can understand how the future land use map may need to be changed. And also, if you can clarify the difference between the RAC and the CAC as far as intensity is concerned, because as I shared before, with the site being next to the interstate, even dropping down that intensity would create some other challenges for that area. So, I don't know all of the background behind CAC being considered for that area, but I'd like for you to explain the difference between RAC and CAC and also how that relates to residential density.
All right, so I'll work backwards and I'll start with the first part that you asked. The CAC future land use category for this site and the surrounding area, there's special area policy. There's a special area policy guideline attached to it. I can get the book so I can read it if you want to hear it verbatim, but it basically puts some constraints on the type of CAC level development that would be allowable here. The PVC zoning itself is compatible with the CAC future land use category as is listed in the comp plan, but again, it's that special area policy guideline that dictates the mark of inconsistent that staff placed in that part of the analysis. So again, it's that special area policy guideline, that's the caveat. As far as the difference between regional activity center and community activity center, it's all about intensity. Regional activity center is, where our most intense commercial development is located in our county. And as you are pretty well versed in where these areas generally are, it's just the two, town center and Cumberland. So that's where our most intense areas are. And also, if you look at our future land use map, you notice that our more intense step down categories tend to be located along major corridors, particularly I-75. So community activity center is, again, a step down from that, and it's supposed to house uses that are complementary to not just neighborhoods in the immediate vicinity, but ones that kind of extend out and cover a wider radius than the ones that are just right there. Again, that big difference is the intensity between the two. So RAC is going to be our most intense uses, ones that are going to draw people from a regional radius, a regional scale, and CAC are the uses that will draw not just from neighborhoods in the immediate vicinity, but ones that extend a bit out from that as well.
Is the density of residential units different between both of those?
Off the top of my head, I couldn't really tell you. Our residential categories are more focused on residential density. When it comes to our commercial categories, I know that for RAC in recent years, they've been looked at pretty much on a case-by-case basis.
Okay, thank you, I appreciate that. In the commissioner comments there and in opposition, there were comments made that CACs typically cap maximum density to 5 units per acre. I don't know if that's practice, is that policy, is that a suggestion? And I see Commissioner Ott shaking his head. I've just never heard that constraint. I've had a recent zoning last month for NRC in which we capped at 5 units per acre, which is a lot less intense than a CAC.
Right,
Because
neighborhood
yes.
commercial category.
Yes, so
which is more
I've just,
compatible
this
with
is my
that.
first time hearing the suggestion for 5 units per acre in a CAC. I can't see them both having the same cap on
Generally
residential
speaking, Commissioner Cupid, I have not seen in my years up here and on the Planning Commission, generally speaking, the board is not asked to consider residential densities, like this, or even a little bit less in CACs.
Okay.
It's usually in the regional activity centers. Generally speaking, CACs are normally just commercial properties. The thing is, the code allows a PVC to go into a CAC. And the PVC is where, because it has the residential, the retail, and the commercial components, that's where you kind of get into the gray area of residential densities in a CAC, because the PVC is allowed. But otherwise, I really haven't seen that many zoning cases for residential property in a CAC. And so I think that's where there's probably some confusion.
or possibly need for discussion.
What I was reading was the variances in staff analysis. And you may want to speak to the 5 versus 10.5 units per acre, John. I don't know if that would help explain.
I've been here since 1998. Not sitting here in this chair, but I've been with the county since 1998. And
You know everything, John.
since I've been here, the staff has always drew the line in the sand for NACs and CACs at a maximum of 5 units per acre to serve as a transitional use between higher intensity commercial or office uses going towards residential uses. And, the board makes the final decision on these types of issues, but sometimes the board would go with that recommendation, and sometimes the board would go in a different direction with that recommendation. But the staff has consistently recommended 5 or less units per acre when in a CAC or a NAC to serve as a transition use.
Was it that density that was perceived to make the development more intense than what was suggested by the future land use map, or was there other types of development that was considered in that analysis that said this was just too intense for that CAC?
Well, there's several different things that go into the staff recommendation for denial, but when it comes to the comp plan is very clear. This is in a CAC. There's language for this land lot, 428, that states very clearly that the board would
specific
only
language.
consider office type uses.
Okay.
That's what it says.
And that's what seems to be controlling.
So
Okay.
that, in
Okay.
addition to the environmental issues,
Okay.
led to the staff's denial on that point.
Okay. That's what we don't see here, is that specific language for that?
No, there is. If you look in the code, and it's 134-217-13T, let me go back down. It's very specific and not, as far as the ratio of units to retail. So John, I don't know what that is just off the fly, but there is specific language in the code that
I'm
addresses
just
that.
looking at the analysis here. I just don't see language referring to that specified language in the future land use map for office.
Well, according to Commissioner Gamble, there's a requirement, we just haven't set the requirement yet, so. Okay, well, I just have a couple comments before I call the question. First of all, I do want to commend Open Land. They did in fact respond to the community's concerns about density. If you look at the, reading out of the DRI, they originally proposed originally almost 600 units, and they reduced it to 300. They reduced the senior active adult department from 300 to 180. They did reduce the ground floor for the apartment retail from 70,000 to 30,000. And they reduced the office from 190,000 square feet to 50,000 square feet. So they, to say that they didn't listen to concerns of the community, I think what it really is that they didn't reduce it enough to meet the concerns of the surrounding community. But they, in fact, did make an effort, and I believe that's because they did hear the concerns from the surrounding community. I think Commissioner Cupid and Commissioner Odd have a good point. This is a designated CAC, and if you look to the south of that, that's office space, and yet the infrastructure doesn't support that. So, you know, just the road system, the trip generation for this development is during the peak hours, morning and afternoon, is another 12,000 cars or vehicles of some kind. And that doesn't include the times between the peak hours. So there is going to be more additional traffic on these roads. Chastain may support that, but certainly Chastain, Meadows, and Bells Ferry do not. The point of what signal we send to the to developers in the county is that more and more and more, we need to look really hard at this 2022 referendum about transit and transportation. If we want to support the kind of businesses that we want to have here, then we need to step up to the plate and, have our infrastructure reflect what's on our land use map. And it doesn't in this case. So both sides have an argument. The residents are concerned about traffic, and the traffic issues are going to be very genuine. And yet the developer's saying, but you've marked it, CAC. So, this is a tough call. On this one, because both sides have good arguments. I do think that there should have been a site plan that reflected the impervious surface that would generate comments from stormwater, because of, the Noonday Creek runs right through this area. The only thing that brings me some comfort is that we already have this parcel marked off with significant commercial potential in office and institution and neighborhood shopping and OS as part of the southern parcel. But it doesn't do any good to build something and you can't get to it. And that's where we are right now. So any other comments? If not, I'll call the question. And it passes 4-1 with a chairman in opposition. Okay, let's take a short break. Let's go to 10:45. The motion passed. The motion was to deny. The motion was to deny, and that passed 4-1. All right, we're back in session here. Okay, so what's our next case? Look at the chart here. We're at Z65, right?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Rezoning case Z65, HRA Investments LLC, request rezoning from GC to NRC for the purpose of light auto repair and retail in land lot 46 of the 18th district. The property is located on the north side of Veterans Memorial Highway, west of Pebblebrook Road. Is the applicant present? Let the record show the applicant is here. Is there anyone here opposed to rezoning case Z65? Two. Let the record show there's 2 people here in opposition. All those wishing to address the board, please come forward to be sworn in.
I don't know, first time I've seen her.
Hello, board members. My name is Harmeet Singh, representing HRA Investments. First, I would like to thank all the board members for all the hard work you all do behind the scenes. Thank you for that. As per last hearing, I mentioned I bought this property from my parents not too long ago as an investment, and just to lease out to tenants. So I own this property right now, and in the past we never had any issues, issuing license or various licenses issued to this property, including wholesale and retail and a lot of other licenses as well. From the last hearing, I understand the main issue was parking. So we, in the new survey, we proposed up to 5 parking spots at this location. And we also have a letter from our neighbors toward the left, 377. They agreed to give us some parking spaces as well, if needed. And, so also we have a letter from our neighbors, and I have a copy over here as well, also email Lisa as well. And at first I was requesting for maybe some minor auto. I was believing that, some auto mechanics, nothing mechanical, but for just a body shop, inside the building, there's 7 to 8 spots. They can fit their vehicles in there. And from my perspective, I was thinking that it won't cause much traffic or anything like that at all. And we have our neighbors parking as well. But from the last hearing, I understand that we were proposing maybe contracting use. And which is, understand, I respect that decision as well. But all I'm requesting is that, that for me as an investor, that's very limited. And I'm requesting if we could open up and see what else we could propose, if anything, retail, wholesale, or something else as well. As an investor, I feel like, if you're in my shoes, I feel like I'm just stuck in a box, have a property, and I really can't find tenants. Contractor use is just extremely very limited. And, I just request you all, if you could help out some way. I really want to be compliant with the board members as well. And I do understand all the concerns. And we do have signs over there for no parking. Vehicle will be towed. So, if anyone does decide to park over there, they can have their vehicles towed. And please look into this case. I've just, I don't know what to do. I have a property, really can't lease it out to many tenants that want contracting use. And for me, I have a property, it just, I don't want to be forced to just foreclosure as a millennial, as an investment I have. So decision up to you, I'll respect that. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, sir.
Good morning. My name is Robin Meyer. I'm the chairman of the Zoning Committee for the Mableton Improvement Coalition. And we asked that you approve this application, but with some very significant conditions. This is a Google Street View snip of the property from 2017. Last few months, the parking has not been the issue that you see here, but it has historically been a problem as this property has been used for commercial, for auto repair and for auto body work. I do want to point out that auto body, as my understanding, is not allowed in the NRC zoning category, as it's a much more intense use. And this is a relatively small building that may or may not be able to be retrofitted for the environmental aspects that are needed for auto body work. It is a very challenging property that the applicant and his family have owned for some time. As you can see, the entire site is 15/100ths of an acre. It's a very, very small piece of property. And the building is more than half of it, and the rest of the site is paved. So there's really very little opportunity here, given the layout of this property, which has been the layout of this property the entire time the owners have owned it. The area in blue is the entire site. The survey that you all received also included the area to the left of the property, calling it asphalt parking. It is not, in fact, parking for this property. It is a road to the two properties behind this building. So absolutely, this area cannot be considered parking for this property. There is a history of code enforcement complaints here, frequently resolved, but nonetheless, parking has been a problem, as has outside storage. So we ask that you approve this application, but based upon the Planning Commission recommendations. Several of them I want to highlight here. We think specialized contractor is a good use for this building, but if there is interest in expanding it beyond that use, our letter to you suggested some prohibited uses that would narrow down some of the more difficult uses that we find in our community in the NRC category. We specifically do not believe that this is appropriate for automobile repair or auto body work. There simply is not enough room to navigate and negotiate vehicle traffic, significant vehicle traffic on this property. There just is not enough outdoors left after the size of the building. The rollout dumpster, which I clearly can't spell, it was a suggestion by the Planning Commission, which I think is a great one. You'll see photos of the dumpster, of a dumpster on this property from time to time, and it just takes up too much parking. There really is no place for it, and there's no place for the truck servicing the dumpster to easily get to it if it is also if it is of that type. And then lastly, there still remains some debris around the property. Last time I drove by, it would be nice if it were tidied up a little bit too. So thank you very much, and we appreciate as well the good thought that you put into this, and we'll look forward to an improvement in this property over time.
Hey, thank you, Robin. Anyone else want to speak in support? Seeing none, those in opposition? Thought we had two people that had opposed this application. Okay, it's all yours, Commissioner Cupid.
Thank you, Chairman. I appreciate the applicant taking time to meet with me about their application and also the letter of the Mableton Improvement Coalition. I'm inclined to support the Planning Commission recommendations, but moderated as was suggested and desired by the applicant. To restrict this to just a contractor use only is severely limited to their ability to be able to market this property. However, there are uses that are not appropriate for this site, which were listed in Mick's email, and there were a couple that were listed in the Planning Commission minutes. I don't know if everyone has the Mick letter, if I need to read it. Some of it is fairly boilerplate, what we add for NRC, but also restricting the automotive repair, automotive use, because those tend to be the NRC properties that have the most parking challenges in the district. So with that, I would like to make a motion that we approve Z65, subject to planning comments and recommendations, but striking the recommendation that this is for specialized contractor use only, and referring to the Mableton Improvement Letter dated October 30th, 2019. There's also a supportive clause in the Planning Commission that provides that the district commissioners to approve all tenants. So that is opportunity for us to ensure that the right tenant goes there without restricting it again to that one use. Also, this motion is subject to staff comments and recommendations not otherwise in conflict.
We have a second?
Second.
Discussion. Call the question. Passes 5-0. Okay, next one is SLUP 16.
Yes, sir. SLUP 16, Baldwin Paving Company Incorporated, requests a special land use permit for the purpose of concrete recycling crushing in land lots 940 and 985 of the 19th District. The property is located on the west side of Sanders Road, south of Flint Hill Road. The applicant is present. Is there anyone here opposed to SLUP 16? Please stand up, raise your hands. Let the record show that there's 13 people here in opposition to SLUP 16. All those wishing to address the board, please come forward to be sworn in.
All right, those are here in support of the, or want to address the board with your application. Let's know who you are and where you live.
Hello, Ryan Teague. I'm owner of Baldwin Paving. Want to go ahead and take this opportunity. We would like to withdraw the application with prejudice. I believe it's appropriate for this time, so.
With prejudice? What? Without prejudice?
Without.
Oh, okay, all right. Trying to help you here. Okay, I'll leave Commissioner Cupid to respond to that.
Okay. I appreciate you coming here today and making that request. This is a significant operation that's going on here. Withdrawing with prejudice would not enable you to continue current operations, at least for the 12-month time period. And I believe that the existing use is non-compliant with the underlying authorization of use of that property today. So what would be the steps if this were to be withdrawn without prejudice? Would operation continue? What is the expectation of the residents?
We would be more than happy to discuss it, but at this point, as far as application, we just want to withdraw, and we have a discussion with the county about that. As far as what we're doing there as of today is permitted use. It's been longstanding, so but we're happy to talk it through. But as far as today, I just want to withdraw the application.
Okay. I'll take any suggestions of the board before
I think what you're seeing is exactly what happens when someone asks for extra time and doesn't get it. They're forced into a corner because it was pretty obvious that this was moving in the direction of denial. And so to protect their rights, the applicant's asking for withdrawal. I'm not surprised in the least, and I support letting them use the property and do the withdrawal.
It's my understanding that a withdrawal without prejudice, they can come back at any time, correct? So they don't have to wait a year.
Right. Correct.
So, since we didn't grant a continuance, I would be in support of a withdrawal without prejudice.
I can't support a withdrawal without prejudice. I was inclined to hear the matter before, and what I'm inclined to do still is hear it and perhaps, and that the most I can consider that after the case is heard. I think there's some merits of this that the board should understand why I'm taking a certain position and why you have so many residents who are here today. And just supporting that withdrawal is not going to facilitate the opportunity for that to be heard.
Yeah, but
Would you be willing to continue it till February at this point?
I would like to hear the case, I would like to hear the case, and then it wouldn't be a continuance, it would be a hold. But again, the merits of it, it would be easier for you to understand if you heard the merits of the matter.
Well, we just heard a case that has been held or continued for over a year.
Yes, ma'am.
And
This
tried
will-
to work things out, and you had 60 people here today and 45 at the planning commission in opposition. And
And I'm very sensitive to that, which is why I'm eager for you to hear the merits of the matter like I did for your case.
Mr. Chairman,
Because I think that,
I make a motion to allow this case to be withdrawn without prejudice.
okay, we have a second.
Second.
All right, now we'll talk about the motion. I'm not sure what we'd accomplish by hearing the case. Right now, he's operating his business as within the law, the outlines of our ordinances.
it has no,
And-
he has not been operating within the outlines of our ordinances.
Well,
Mr. Chairman and Board, this is not permitted use without a special land use permit.
right,
They've been operating here since 2014 under a grading permit that zoning never signed off on.
okay, so that's a code enforcement issue,
That's correct.
all right? So has code enforcement gone and taken the appropriate measures to have them cease and desist?
That's not the action that code enforcement typically makes as a cease and desist action.
Well, they can take it to court. If they're not complying with the ordinances,
This is why they are here today. If you could allow this to be heard, all of this will be made clear. If you don't
All right.
hear it, you will not
All right,
understand.
I
the
hear what you're
basis.
saying. I'm not sure what we're gonna accomplish by this, but I get your point. So we have a motion on the floor. Any further discussion on it? All right, I'll call the question.
Oh, Jesus.
I'm thinking.
You have a motion? I'm
I'm-
sorry.
I'm thinking.
What motion is on the floor?
To support the withdrawal without prejudice.
No, they could,
That's the motion on the floor right now, to support this without prejudice.
I don't, I support us hearing the case.
But we have a motion, all right? And you.
I
oppo-
voted.
All right, that's good, you voted.
Commissioner Ott made a motion, seconded by Commissioner Burrow, to allow us withdrawal without prejudice.
Right.
I am willing to change my motion to holding it.
I think it's very bold for you to make this motion anyway, Commissioner. You have residents here who are being denied an opportunity to speak to the merits of their concerns that they have been dealing with.
Commissioner Cupid, if the applicant wishes to withdraw the application, there is nothing to discuss, and it's as the Chairman said, a code enforcement issue. If it's not allowed use, then code enforcement can have them stop the use. The coming forward with the special land use permit is the applicant trying to get permission to do it. And if they make the decision, they know the consequences of withdrawing their application. And it just, as I mentioned before, I thought it should have been held. It wasn't held, and so if the person asks for withdrawal without prejudice, they should be allowed, especially when you indicate that you would only allow withdrawal with prejudice. And I have never, in all my years in planning commission and zoning, ever supported a with prejudice because of the limitations it puts on the property.
Have you ever had someone move a crusher operation immediately next to residential property? The circumstances around this case are quite unique, and I believe that these residents here will feel that this board has not done them any service by making this motion today, and it will show them that there is more sensitivity to putting retail commercial next to single-family homes than there is in stopping a crusher run operation that is immediately next to residential property.
Allowing withdrawal without prejudice still causes it to be stopped because it's not an allowed use.
Without prejudice allows them to come back and apply at any time.
Sure, right.
Yeah, but
That's
they still
correct.
have to stop
But they have still, the intent is to stop the operation.
They've already had to stop the operation. They're operating not within code.
Well, that's been brought to the attention of the board now. I'm sorry, I thought that they were operating within the limits of the ordinance, but apparently they're not. Code enforcement, no, their response to go out here and enforce the code.
You are denying citizens the opportunity. By this motion, you will deny these citizens opportunity to have their voice on the record about how this board did not hear their concerns about the protection of their single-family homes, and to at the very least hold this for another 3 months without getting their concerns on the record, and I find that problematic, and I will not support that motion.
All right, and you so indicated by your vote. So the board, the motion to withdraw this application without prejudice has been passed 4-1. And Commissioner Cupid is in opposition. All right, so thank you for coming today.
Thank you.
I'll talk to code enforcement. All right, let's go. The next case is OB 61, right?
Correct, sir.
Okay.
Thank you. Today's first item, other business number 61 of 2019, is to consider a site plan amendment for Sergeant Patel regarding rezoning application Z52 of 2016 for property located on the west side of Ernest Barrett Parkway, south of Zachary Woods Drive, and land lot 329 of the 20th District. By way of background, Mr. Chairman and Board, the subject property was rezoned to residential senior living, RSL, in 2016 for a supportive living facility. In December 2018, the property came back to this board under other business to have the building height and renderings approved. The applicant has finished their final engineering and would like to amend the site plan for the proposal. The building would still be 2 stories in height with a maximum of 120 supportive residential units. The applicant would have the garden plots in the back, which was approved originally for the use of the residents. But the applicant is still evaluating whether they want walking trails that were previously approved on the western part of the property. If approved, all stipulations not in conflict with this amendment should remain in effect. The staff would ask the Board of Commissioners to conduct a public hearing and consider the proposed stipulation amendment. Is the applicant present? Let the record show the applicant is here. Is there anyone here opposed to other business number 61? No one opposed? Let the record show there's no one opposed. And the applicant is present, Mr. Chairman and Board. If y'all have any questions, I don't believe they have a presentation prepared right now, but they are here for questions.
So what's the staff's recommendation?
Mr. Chairman and Board, the staff would recommend the Board of Commissioners approve the request, subject to the number of parking spaces not to exceed the minimum as allowed by zoning, with the final site plan to be approved by the District Commissioner. Applicant to install the walking trails on the western side of the property and not in the 80-foot buffer area. District Commissioner to approve the final building architecture and all previous conditions not in all conditions not not in conflict with this amendment to remain in effect. Sorry about that.
Okay. Commissioner Gamble.
So moved.
We have a second? Discussion? Call the question. Passes 5-0.
Thank you.
Okay, OB 64.
Yes, sir. Other business number 64 of 2019 is to consider a stipulation of site plan amendment for Ellis Lake Investments LLC regarding rezoning application Z47 of 2016 and Z38 of 2017 for property located on the south side of Dallas Road, east of Villa Rica Way, and at the northern terminus of Hickory Stick Lane. By way of background, Mr. Chairman and Board, the subject property was rezoned to the R20 and R80 zoning districts in 2016 for a 198-lot residential subdivision. A small piece of property was added to the development in 2017, which increased the number of lots to 203 lots. In 2018, a site plan amendment was approved by then Commissioner Weatherford, which changed the subdivision layout and moved the amenity area from the center of the property to the western edge of the property. The number of lots remained the same number, The applicant would like to revise the site plan to change the road locations and move the amenity area more towards the center of the subdivision. The number of lots has been reduced to 202 lots due to a lot combination of two lots. The buffer and access will remain the same as previously approved. If approved, all conditions not in conflict with this amendment should remain in effect. The applicant is present. Is there anyone here opposed to other business number 64? Let the record show there's no one here.
Good morning, again.
Good morning again.
Okay, you ready?
Sure.
All right, sir. Good morning, Kevin.
Sure. Good morning, Mr. Chairman and Commissioners. Kevin Moore here on behalf of Ellis Lake Investments for this other business item and request for a stipulation amendment as well as site plan amendment. And I'll be brief. This was held from last month, and we had a lot of additional discussions and tried to bring this together in the conversations that we had with the surrounding residents on these changes. Culminated in a November 13, 2019 stipulation letter. And so I just want to make sure that I mentioned this letter and let you know that from where I sit, and this embodies the agreements that were made by Ellis Lake Investments as a developer for this subdivision to that for these amendments. And I want to just briefly hit on the main point, and then I'll be available for any questions that you may have on this. Let me turn to that site plan. This is the revised site plan for Ellis Lake. As Mr. Peterson mentioned, what we are proposing, the prior approved site plan had the amenity area, the entire amenity area located along this western portion of the property. At this point, we've kept a portion of the amenity here, as well as moved an amenity to a more central location on the subdivision, though it is connected by walking trails through this area here. There was also some minor adjustments in road layout for this 202-unit subdivision. But primarily with this request and the stipulations specifically really relate to this area of the proposed subdivision that's adjacent to Winthrop Manor. In the 2016 approval of rezoning, there was a stipulation agreement for a 30-foot undisturbed and natural and maintained buffer along the western portion of and adjacent to the Georgia Power easement that runs right here. So that was a 30-foot buffer that was put in place by that approval. With this change, one of the things they were able to do is pull this street even further away from that adjacent area, and we've also agreed to an additional 30 feet. So it's actually a total of 60 feet of buffer. So we've doubled the buffer area through this application and amendment to the site plan. The stipulations that are before you really just detail how that's going to occur, that this buffer remains in place, that the new buffer area will be a buffer area. It can be disturbed if necessary, but if it is, it'll have to be totally replanted. And it also confirms that this buffer area will be maintained by the homeowner association going forward. And in addition, there will be a staggered row of trees planted along the edge to provide even additional screening for those adjacent residents. So it took a lot of words in the stipulation letter to simply say we're adding a 30-foot buffer to the site plan, and it'll be treated as such, and to detail out how that will go moving forward for the development. I also wanted to make sure, based on communication from Ms. Veronica Carey, who's also an adjoining resident, to confirm for the board and on the record the prior stipulations remain in full force and effect, and specifically the prior stipulations that detail that this buffer area I just reviewed with you will be called out in the deeds going forward, as well as in the homeowner association documents and plats and covenants as part of the overall development of the subdivision. So with that, we respectfully request your approval of this other business item based on the November 13th stipulation letter. Thank you.
Thank you, Kevin. And I believe there was no opposition. So anybody else want to speak in support of this other business item? You're here to speak in support or in opposition? Support, okay. Well, you have.
Well, she's walking up. Can I just ask John a quick question? I'm missing the point as to why this is another business item.
I'll answer that.
I'm asked John. When you say in here Commissioner Weatherford approved, did he approve it without coming in front of the board, or did he make
Correct.
a motion that? So if he was allowed to move, if Commissioner Weatherford was allowed to sign off on it, moving the amenity area the first time, and now you're moving it back to the center, and you're reducing the number of lots, and you're increasing the size of the buffer, why do we have to vote on that?
Commissioner Ott.
I know, but he's supposed to know the answer.
When Commissioner Weatherford approved the site plan amendment last year, he moved the amenity area from the center of the subdivision to the very edge.
Right.
When the folks walked out of here in 2016, they had the assurances from the board that the amenity area would not be placed along the edge of the property, so that's why it was in the center.
Right.
So, as a way to show transparency and the fact that different commissioners had different feelings about what's minor or not, we did discuss this with the district commissioner, and her approving what's
Okay,
what's for today was not a minor amendment she could have signed off on.
Okay, then that should have been in the background.
Okay.
Okay, because when you read the background, it makes no sense as to why we're hearing this. Now, when you say that, that's fine. I have no problem with that, but that's why it should be in the background, because when you read this, if the district commissioner was able to sign off on moving it the other way, and now we're just moving it back, and we're reducing the number of lots and increasing the amount of the buffer, I mean, that's fine if Commissioner Gambrell wants it to be heard, but you got to tell us that. Because when I read this,
I'll do a better job in the future, Commissioner.
Okay. All right, ma'am, I believe we have one more speaker. She's being sworn in. Good morning.
Good morning.
Just let us know who you are and where you live.
Yes, I'm Veronica Carey. Kevin Moore referenced me, and I live in the Cheatham Springs subdivision, which is adjacent to the Ellis Lake development. And in looking at his most recent submittal to you all, I noticed that there was a new provision, item 6, that says that the applicant agrees that when he submits land disturbance permit applications, he will put into the construction and site plans the specific details of all the buffer protections that we want. And we like that idea because, there's a saying, only God can make a tree, but it doesn't take very much heavy equipment to destroy a tree. So we think that this new provision puts the construction managers and the supervisors of the bulldozers and whatnot on notice, additional notice for buffer protection. Mr. Moore, in highlighting that before you all, referenced that applies, that does not mean the original stipulation that those buffer protections must be recited in deeds of conveyance. He said regarding the buffer along Winthrop Manor. But it's our understanding, Kevin, that all properties that in Ellis Lake that contain buffers or are adjacent to buffers will have the buffer stipulation in the deeds of conveyance. Is that correct? Not just the buffers along Winthrop Manor.
Ma'am, you got to address the board.
I'm sorry.
Kevin will have to run for office if he wants to.
Yeah.
So.
Is it possible for the board to confirm, or Commissioner Gambrell to confirm with Kevin Moore that all deeds of conveyance that contain buffer areas are going to recite the buffer stipulations.
Okay, so what'll happen is she's heard your request?
Yes.
And she'll address it in her remarks, you know,
Perfect.
when she has the floor.
Yes.
Okay?
Because as I said, we are in support of this, but it's just a clarification that I was requesting.
Okay, all right.
Okay,
All
thank
right,
you.
Thank you. Anyone else in support? Anyone in opposition? Oh, we have one more in support? Okay. She's in opposition? Okay, gotta find out here. She's, if you just let us know who you are and where you live, and are you here for support or in opposition?
More for clarification.
Okay?
My name is Faye Sisk. I live in Winthrop Manor. I am in lot number 11, which is the one furthest to the north side of the adjacent property to the Ellis Lake Division. One reason that we in Winthrop Manor were so adamant and were so appreciative of Commissioner Gambrell's willingness to listen to us was because when the original 2016 site was drawn, there were 8 homes adjacent to Winthrop Manor. There were minor stipulations allowed not only to move the amenities, but also to increase the density of homes between Ellis Lake and Winthrop Manor. Our homes are mostly zoned R80. The new homes were at one point rezoned to R15, which was removed, and then back to R20. So one of the importances of these extra buffers was to compensate for the increased density between our home and the Ellis Lake properties. Another consideration or important part here is that even though the properties next to us now are only 11 in number, and the actual square footage or acreage of each unit is same and consistent with the rest of the subdivision, those lots are all extremely narrow and long. So even though they're the same size, the proximity to each other is much closer than the rest of the subdivision. So we in Winthrop Manor were very persistent in seeking the ear of the commission because we were very concerned about the depreciating property values by the high density of those homes right adjacent to our property line. Now, the good news is that we do have the power right-of-way next to our homes. But as you know, as part of maintenance of a power right-of-way is the vegetation is removed. So therefore, there is a gully of red clay between us and the Ellis Lake property line. So these buffers, clarification of buffers, guarantees that arborists would be available to make certain that our properties would be well protected in value, and also for clarification of density, which changed from 8 in 2016 to suddenly 13 in 2018 and subsequently 19 without the knowledge of the property owners or the Winthrop Manor Homeowners Association. Also, in addition to that, there was a change in council representing Pebblebrook. Originally, it was Garvis Sams, and now it is Moore, Ingram, and Johnson. And one of the principals of the firm is Bill Johnson, who is my next-door neighbor. So we wanted to make certain that there was full transparency about the agreement between Winthrop Manor and Ellis Lake, ensuring for us adequate protection of the value of our property, the appropriate buffers because of the unique nature of the power easement, and also the seeking the assistance of the arborists of Cobb County to make certain that our property value was maintained. So that is basically a little bit more insight into the history of why we were so adamant and were appreciative of the commissioner's assistance to make sure that our R80 zoned homes are protected.
Okay.
I've been a property owner, Cobb County, on the side for 23 years in this current home, and then 10 years in my other home in Vining. So I feel that I've been a good citizen and supported the county.
And we appreciate you coming here today to make your comments. Thank you, taking time out of your day. All right, John, what's the staff recommendation?
Mr. Chairman and Board, the staff would recommend the Board of Commissioners approve the request, subject to the letter of conditions from Kevin Moore dated November 13th, 2019, which includes the site plan labeled as Exhibit A, subject to the District Commissioner approving the final layout of the amenity area, and all stipulations not in conflict with this amendment should remain in effect.
Okay, Commissioner Gamble.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Chairman. And before making my motion, I'd like to add to this.
Sure.
This original zoning from 2016 predates my term as a member of the board, along with the chairman. The development originally approved for this unique and complicated piece of property has resulted in considerable hours of staff's time in attempting to resolve changes the developer proposed and agreements previously made with adjacent neighbors being in conflict. I appreciate Josh and Larry Thompson, who have been willing to listen, communicate, and work with me and the surrounding neighborhoods to ensure this property is developed to its fullest potential while being respectful to adjoining neighbors. In the matter before us, the 2016 rezoning application, known as Z47, was problematic since the beginning. During the rezoning hearings, the proposed development was verbally communicated to be an R20, but in reality, they had designed an R15 development. This is like fitting a size 10 foot into an 8 shoe while convincing the Board of Commissioners that the shoe was more like a 10.5 to begin with. Developments of this magnitude truly require strong engineering and pre-planning from conception to the filling of the rezoning application. Any good plan requires due diligence on the front end rather than the back end. It is not smart or wise to alter site plans after final public approval and especially after construction has begun. As District Commissioner, I am willing to authorize minor modifications that are truly small and specific in nature. We should not burden the public process with such small changes which do not in any way deviate from the original intent of the approved rezoning or site plan. However, the changes presented to me this past May were not minor modifications, as they greatly altered the original intent of the improved rezoning. Before us today is truly a posture of compromise and the efforts by all parties who have worked on this site plan to reach consensus. Therefore, any changes going forward, except those that are truly small and ultimately insignificant, will require a full rezoning application and hearing process in future if changes are required. At this time, I move for the board to approve OB 64 with the following changes to the previously approved stipulations. And Robin, I know this is going to be long, so I'll give this to you, but I feel it's necessary based on the conflict and time that staff has put forth to get us here. Again, the site plan in question to be approved is dated October 9th of 2019, which is revision 1 of October 9th, 2019. From the letter of stipulations dated October 11th, 2016, paragraph number 6, we need to add to the end, quote, all amenities stipulated are subject to review and approval by stormwater plan review staff and the district commissioner prior to permitting. Paragraph 8A, the last sentence, quote, said buffer must be designed and maintained in keeping with paragraph 11F of these stipulations. There shall also be a 30-foot disturbed graded buffer in addition to the naturally maintained buffer to be replanted subject to the county arborist review and district commissioner approval. Paragraph 8C on the second line, strike lots 52 and 53 and replace with lots 56, 57, and 58. Also in this paragraph, strike lots 44 through 52 and replace with lots 46 to 58. Paragraph 11A, strike lots 53 to 74 and replace with lots 58 to 74. Paragraph 11B, strike lots 53 to 74 and replace with lots 58 to 74. Paragraph 14A, delete in entirety to read deleted. Paragraph 23, strike lots 53 to 74, lots 45 to 52, and replace with lots 46 to 78. Further, for this record and going forward under the motion for Z47, delete paragraph 2 in its entirety, and under paragraph 3, strike lots 196 and 198 and replace with lots 201 to 203. Additionally, from the letter of stipulations revised dated October 14th of 2016, paragraph 8C, strike lots 52 and 53 and replace with lots 56, 57, and 58. Further, strike lots 42 to 52 and replace with lots 46 to 58. From the letter of stipulations dated June 28th, 2017, paragraph 5, strike, and the amenity area shall be. Okay, almost done. From the letter of stipulations dated today, or dated November 13th, 2019, to number 3, this is going to be in the last sentence, Robin, and it says, and thereafter the original buffer and additional trees shall be maintained, put in parentheses, which includes adequate watering to that. And then I would like to add number 8 to that stipulation, which would be any major changes to the site plan will require a rezoning application to be heard before the Planning Commission and the Board of Commissioners, and then all previous stipulations not in conflict with this motion to remain in effect.
Have a second? I'll second it for discussion. Are there any houses left in this division? Okay, comments? Commissioner Ott.
I understand wanting to go back and fix things that you don't like in a previous zoning, but I'm kind of curious if you had any discussion with Mr. Thompson about all the changes you just put in.
The changes we put in, Commissioner Ott, are pretty much because the site plans have changed, clarifying that the stipulations now apply to those lot numbers. So we haven't changed the stipulation.
You removed certain things. You deleted certain stipulations.
We changed the lot numbers.
Well, my question is, did you talk to them?
We have been in communication with them.
Did you tell them that you were going to do what you just did?
That I went and further defined their stipulation to change the lot numbers?
It's just a simple yes or no would be fine. Did you talk to them about the things you were going to remove from the stipulation letter and the changes you were going to make?
No, but we also have been talking to them
Okay,
about
that's
the
the only
change.
question I have.
Okay. Commissioner Burrow.
Yeah, are the lot numbers, I know you're rearranging, but what is it still 203 lots?
The
or
lot
what?
numbers have not changed. The locations of the lot numbers have changed and shifted. Therefore, we wanted to clarify in the stipulation letter that what the new lot numbers were to the old lot numbers.
Well, if you're putting the amenities back in the center.
They're not going back in the center. That's part of the issue. The amenities were first originally located by the lake.
Right. Well, I thought John's comments initially were, or Kevin's, were that that Commissioner Weatherford changed them from the center to the edge, and now they're coming back to where they were originally zoned.
The change that Commissioner Weatherford made took the amenities from the lake and put them next to Knob Bridge, which would have been at the western corner of the property. But there was no amenities defined. It just said future amenities. I believe if that was correct on, it just said future amenities. There was no pool, there was no clubhouse, there was nothing done. This was in direct conflict to the letter of stipulations that back in 2016.
So your lot numbers revised.
Correct.
numbers.
We're just so the number of units is not changing.
But we don't have a site plan that shows what's being done.
It's in Kevin Moore's letter. It's the last page.
So she's just changing numbers.
I'm just changing numbers to make sure that everybody is
Are
very
still in the same
clear.
position that they presented?
Yeah, the bulk of what she stated when she changed the lot numbers was from the old numbers from 2016, putting them with the new numbers how they are now, because it's the same number of lots, but they're arranged differently now. So she just wants to ensure that where it has buffer language for these lots in 2016, it matches up to the 2019 plan.
Okay.
But-
Are they agreeable to that?
Yeah, where's Mr. Moore?
The numbers of the lots that changed go back to the buffers, which are depicted on this current site plan.
All right,
Did he have the site plan with the recent letter? Because I don't even have the November 13th letter.
all right. I guess the basic question is, given her comments or stipulations, your thoughts?
And just speaking with Mr. Peterson and listening as closely as I could follow, I understood it to be simply having the new lot numbers match up to the prior stipulations, because the numbering changed. Obviously, we have no problem with that, because we're not trying to change any of the stipulations from that. We're only adding two. I don't know if there was anything else more substantive than that in what was read.
Okay, so what I'm hearing from
With
you
that,
is,
we're okay with. I don't think I caught anything more substantive than simply changing out the lot numbers.
okay,
Correct.
There was some things that were deleted, but I don't know, not having it in front of me, there were some things that were stated that I was not able to determine, so.
I can fill you in on what one of those
That's
was,
great.
Kevin. In the June of 2017, Commissioner Weatherford, in his motion, had said any and all changes to be approved, to be done by the district commissioner. And that is kind of what led us to these massive non-minor modifications that I don't consider minor, because they were in conflict. So essentially, just to put the adjacent neighbors at ease, we're taking that out to let them know that I cannot just make any and all changes.
all right, but the other question is the amenities, the proposal is to move the amenities back to the center of the development.
A portion of them, yes.
Okay, but now her motion doesn't do that.
No, it still does, because I'm approving the site plan
Site
that
plan.
Kevin submitted today,
Okay,
which shows the amenities being moved back more towards the center of their
Okay.
development.
well, what I heard from you earlier was that there's an amenity area that will not be moved. That's the one up in the northwest corner?
No, so
Is this the site plan that shows the amenities in the middle?
this is the site plan we're approving today,
All right, and so the amenities are where on the site plan?
right?
Kevin?
Right here.
Okay, that's what I thought.
Okay, and so
Yes.
All right.
pretty much what's happening here is we know that this is where the amenities are going to go. But if you carefully look, we don't see a pool house, we don't see a clubhouse, we
Right.
don't see an amenities package there, because we know we're allowing Josh and Larry Thompson time to work with their engineers to develop what feature would go best there. So hence, that's why I changed part of the previous language, is because we knew it wasn't clearly defined for that area, knowing that it's gonna come back and stormwater will have to review it, and so on.
Okay, so I think getting right back to Commissioner Ott's question is that does the applicant understand all the changes and do they support them? That's the question. Or do you need more time?
The question about more time would maybe a few minutes. I don't know how much longer this meeting's
I'm-
going, so.
Well, pretty much what I can do is, I have the site plan from 2017, and I'm willing to put it up there and show you exactly where one of my changes was, if you'd like to see that. so that way you can see exactly what I did.
Well, the only thing I'm concerned about is that once we vote on it, then we vote
Right.
on it. And I don't want to
Correct.
vote on it unless both sides
Is there anything left?
fully understand what it is that we're agreeing upon.
Okay, well, how about I do this? If I could request, I know there's another item on your agenda, and have them just we can look at this very quickly and then come back to it after that.
So you
I
want
don't
us
know how,
to
from a
to
procedure
continue this
standpoint,
until after the next agenda item?
we could finish it then. Just have them review it. I think they can be comfortable, and I believe we're gonna say it's very agreeable, but I think it would add a level of comfort to them.
All right, but we still have to vote on continuing this until the next agenda item. We just can't delay the discussion of it. We can't have an open-ended, we can't leave something open-ended here on an agenda item. So we gotta have some sort of a motion that agrees to hold this until the discussion, at the end of discussion on the next agenda item. It's an unusual request, but it allows us to do that, right?
Yes, it allows you to do that, and actually, it's just what happened to Commissioner Cupid's prior item. If there is a motion in order to continue or hold for a time specific, it overrides the underlying motion regarding the issue. Yes.
So if you just make that motion to continue for a period of time, and the period of time is at the end of the next agenda item.
Okay, I'd like to amend my motion to continue this OB 64 until after the next agenda item.
Okay, we have a second? Discussion. Call the question. Well, no, they're talking. Well, all right, let's call the vote. Call the question. It passes 5-0. All right. So let's do OB 66 now.
And I'll read this one real slow so we have lots of time for it.
Commissioner Gamble is very capable of being multitasked, so I think we're going to be okay.
Gotcha.
And
Item number
again, if she's not comfortable with what we're doing, we'll just continue that too, all right?
Yes, sir. Item number 66 is to consider a reduction of required lot size for livestock from 2 acres to .762 acres for Cecily Ferguson for property located on the south side of Blackwell Road, east of Mountain Ridge Drive, and land lot 344, the 16th district. By way of background, Mr. Chairman, Board, the Board of Commissioners considers all reductions to minimum lot size pursuant to a code amendment to section 134-271-7A adopted on February 27, 2018. The subject property is zoned R20 and has 33,182 square feet, which is .762 acres. The request is to reduce the lot size from 2 acres to .762 acres for livestock. The animals would be kept in a 4,050 square foot fenced enclosure in the center of the backyard, and that is shown on your site plan. The enclosure will be approximately 20 feet off the eastern property line and approximately 30 feet off the western property line. The enclosure area would not be visible from the public street due to the house and the existing greenhouse that are on the property. The applicant would like to keep certain livestock on the property, which would be sheep and goats, for 2 reasons. First, the animals would provide therapy for an autistic child. And second, the applicant would like to use the animals to make homemade food such as milk, yogurt, and cheese. The applicant would like to have 3 sheep and 3 dwarf Nigerian goats. The goats would be approximately 23 inches in height when they're fully matured. The applicant is present. Is there anyone here opposed to this item? The record shows there's no one opposed. Does the applicant want to say a few things? Yeah, she wants to make a brief presentation, Mr. Chair.
All right.
Okay, good morning. If you just let us know who you are and where you live.
Okay. My name is Cecile Ferguson. I reside at 1632 Blackwell Road in Marietta.
Okay.
Last year, I went through all of the necessary steps needed to petition this board for land use permit that would allow me to have my backyard chickens, and in addition, I put in my application for other business for dairy goats and sheep. As I stated before this board last year during my presentation, what motivates me to do this is my son. I didn't have an image of him last year. My son Josiah Young, now 11, was diagnosed with autism. With the diagnosis of autism came other challenges in common with autism spectrum disorders such as ADHD combined chronic, severe anxiety, OCD, sensory processing disorder. If we look at the photo, the first one, my son Josiah, this is his first time at Six Flags, and he's with my brother-in-law, and he's about to go on their skywalk. We always try to do things with Josiah because kids with sensory processing disorder, their sensory levels are off the chart. Anything can affect them, can cause meltdowns, lights, traffic, school buses, noises, that sort of thing. So I always try to integrate him whenever I can. The third photo, I didn't set it up right, but the third photo is, as you can see from the first, he's concerned. The third photo is where he's making his trip along the skywalk there, and the second photo is he made it, and we're just very proud of him that he's willing to try something at least once. And the very last photo is his first experience in a public men's restroom. So as you can see, everything sets off my son's sensory. So how does that tie into what I'm asking this board to approve for me today? During the past 5 years, as I said it before, my son participated in various therapy sessions from twice a week up to 4 times a week, every week. His therapy sessions include speech therapy, occupational therapy, ABA, which is behavioral therapy, social skills therapy, which helps my son to learn how to relate to other people, to the environment around him, to unforeseen challenges that he may meet that pops up that we all take for granted because we're able to immediately adapt. That's not so with autistic children. I share with this board how farm animals are a great outlet for kids on the spectrum and how farm animals can help autistic children with appropriate social interaction, assertiveness. They can be engaging and fun for our special needs kids. In addition, studies have found that an autistic child's interaction with animals enable them to have an increase in socially appropriate behavior, show fewer autistic behaviors such as hand flapping, which my son does if he's overstimulated from a great deal of impulses, sensory. He would start flapping, or he would start making inaudible sounds. He'd run up and down. It helps with them, or helps negate the humming and the spinning of objects, jumping, etc. They were less easily distracted and were more likely to engage in conversation and discussion, often about the animal. In session with children with autism, therapists discovered that farm animals can provoke attention and engagement, reinforce task acquisition and completion, which means if I ask my son to do something, usually you allow a certain amount of repetition, or I'm trying to think of the clinical term. If I ask my son to go to his room to locate an item, redirection. So it will help him to concentrate and focus more instead of having to come back out 4 times. Well, mommy, what did you say? Where is it? It helps to hone in on his ability to focus cognitively. It stimulates conversation and social interaction and provides opportunity for sensory integration. And I'd like for you to, okay, there we go. What I'm asking for is for my backyard, the Nigerian dwarf goats. Female, the maximum height of an adult female is 22 inches. That's less than 2 feet. The male, 23 inches in terms of height. As you can see, the first image shows a baby dwarf Nigerian goat at the height and the same size pretty much as a chicken. The adult is next to the chicken as well. Here's a dwarf Nigerian goat next to a Schnauzer, and you know how small those dogs are. Can we go to the next one? One of the picture with the little toddler there with the red cap shows adult Nigerian goats and with the toddler, and the other images shows how farm animals are used with kids on the spectrum and special needs children. It truly does make a difference in opening them up. Next. More and more programs are being implemented to help special needs kids, and they're using animals more and more to do so, to open up, to teach responsibilities, to cause them to be more willing to engage in something new and to be willing to try something new at least once. It just opens the door in a whole different way than just audible commands or instructions. Next for me. And once again, we're seeing more and more farm animals being brought into the classroom, or kids are being taken to the farm to deal or be introduced to animals. Next. And this is just more images of children, these Nigerian dairy goats, dwarf dairy goats, being used to just connect with children who are special needs. Next. This, in my research, was a little surprising that in the northern part of the United States, the Nigerian dwarf goats are slowly becoming the new household pets and are replacing dogs. So we see up north that they're walking them on leashes, and the far right photo shows this lady walking her Nigerian dwarf goat with her dogs. And this is just more pictures, just showing you that there's no harm. I wouldn't come before this board to ask this board to consider something that could be a potential danger to my community and or perhaps a nuisance to my neighbors. I've lived in my community for 15 years, and I've never, not at one time, have had my neighbors or anybody complain against me. As a matter of fact, I have had great support from my community regarding this, this whole project, what it is I'm trying to establish. Even one of them, Mimi, who lives at 1518 Blackwell Road, mentioning to me to consider even working with schools and having the elementary kids probably come out and take a look and teach them about growing foods and that sort of thing. Next photo. Once again, this is I'm just showing you just how it's becoming very popular, these small little dwarf goats. Next. Here is a farm that has half a dozen Shetland sheep and their lamb on 1 acre. So we've got at least 6 adults and 3 or 4 babies on this, and they're staying in paddocks. Go ahead. And once again, there's the paddocks for these lambs, these sheep, and it's not open pasture. And the final photo. Here is a polytunnel sheep house. There's over 50 sheep in there that house these sheep. And what I am asking for and what I will provide for just 3 is greater than that. So where there's a will, there's a way. So, and that's it with my presentation, and I'm open if you all have questions.
Okay, thank you. Anyone else in support or not, in opposition? Seeing none, John, what's the staff recommendation?
Thank you.
Mr. Chairman of the Board, the staff would recommend the Board of Commissioners approve the request subject to the following conditions. Maximum of 24 months with the other business fee to be waived at renewal. Stormwater management comments contained in the other business packet. The site plan contained in the other business packet, and a maximum of 1 goat and 1 sheep on the property.
Okay. Commissioner Burrow.
Okay. Thank you, Ms. Ferguson, for a very nice presentation. And I understand, your son and your hardship there and wanting to do what's best for your son. My concern is the size of the property. We do have a 2-acre minimum for chickens and for livestock, but you have applied for the LUP, and which you were granted last year for the chickens. That was renewed earlier today for 2 years. And we haven't had any issues or complaints on the chickens. Three goats and 3 sheep to me is a lot. Pretty, too excessive for 0.76 tenths of an acre. So, I'm glad to see the staff's recommendation. My concern is the size of the pen, if you will, for these 2 animals, and any way of them getting out and crossing Blackwell Road, unless there's a fence around the entire property. Is it going to be all fenced in, or just the pen?
It's going.
Yeah, come back up.
Can you? Yeah. Yeah.
There- I'm looking at the
Oh,
site.
I know. I actually have, he would need my flash drive again, but, so someone coming out to do my fencing for me is a gentleman by the name of Mark Woodland, who is coming from Madison County, Georgia. He himself is a farmer, and I've gotten a lot of recommendation and advice for him, understanding where I live, and understanding what I need to do to secure that the animals don't come out. Understand that we're talking a dwarf goat. We're talking six feet of fencing, right? And we're talking little dwarf goat that's about this big. It's not much of a threat of getting out, and they're not going to. I made sure I'm petitioning for the Nigerian dwarf goats because they're small, not the regular size goats that would have a greater risk of escaping. So that was a big thing in terms of my planning in regards to the staff recommends 1 goat and 1 sheep, and perhaps I can put them together, because one of any farm animal, I don't know if that's good for the actual animal to be alone. If I have a single Nigerian goat, and goats and sheep can dwell together, but the spacing that I have is more than adequate for what I am doing in my backyard. So the fencing, in addition to the cattle fencing for sheep and goats, will also be electric fencing around to also deter any type of attempt for the animals to try to escape. So I've considered all of that, and as I've mentioned it to my neighbors, and I've gotten a lot of support from my community on this.
Okay. I just have concerns of the size, and also that you are in a platted subdivision on a busy road. But I'd like to defer to the board for comments. I know Commissioner Gamble's familiar with farm animals, and I'd like input from the rest of the board too, before I
Commissioner Gamble.
make a motion.
Thank you, Commissioner Pearl. One of my questions that I had for you, are you looking at male or females?
Female.
Females only? Also, I found it interesting that you had the picture, and I had looked at that as well, that they recommend 6 sheep per acre of land, but you're looking at doing 3 sheep and 3 goats on 4,000 square foot lot, essentially. I know sheep and goats tend to share the same parasites, so how are you going to control rotation pasture maintenance, ensuring there's adequate grazing, because we know goats need to graze.
This is true. But also, since you are aware of farming, my goal was grain feeding them grain, as well as fodder system for both the animals. If I'm given just one, if I'm allowed just one Nigerian dwarf, and you know how small those things are, they're the size of a dog. A small dog is that, at that. But if I am, my property, if you walk out to my property and you walk into my backyard, you'll see how it's flagged, and I have like bay areas, if you will. It's one large paddock area. I'm just gonna get the flash drive that I can bring up.
No, the question is very simple, all right? How are you going to deal with the parasite issue between the two animals?
Because the two animals are gonna be separated by bays. So,
So
and what I
you-
mean by bays is that it's one big open space, but it will be divided to house the goat in one area. I'm talking 20 by, I think it was 45. I don't have it on my, I don't have the exact measurement out of my head. That's why I was
So
gonna
they're going
go
to be
get it.
separated? They won't be-
Correct.
They will not be, they will not
No, they will not
congregate
be together. The
Okay.
goat will be in one bay or one space, and the sheep in another, and they're all fenced in.
Okay.
So it's like a stable, going into stable, and you have the horse in one.
These
Yeah,
three
okay.
bays.
And then you, in some of the photos that you showed, are you looking at having people come to your home to see the animals?
No, not at all. Like, as I mentioned in my letters to my neighbors, I'm not going into business. This is homeopathic, therapeutical solution for my son. My son cannot always, my son is in at home more than he is out. There's only so much sensory he can take on when we leave home. Home is safe, home is security. When we leave home and we go out, and in the event he is overstimulated by what he's received being out, whether it's through his sight, hearing, smell, whatever it is, that can cause a meltdown or cause him to react in what would look like to everybody maybe a tantrum, because he's just overloaded with sensory. It is good to have the animals for him, just like it is with my greenhouse. I go and I garden and I do, it's a way of calming down. I tried working with Leslie, who owns the 4 acres, and you'll know who I'm talking about, Commissioner Burrell. She, just by the church before the railroad tracks, I would go and feed her horses and everything. I considered leasing property from her to be able to do this, because it's not too far from my home. But her partner was not willing to do that. So I have looked for alternatives, and when I speak to other people who are on larger property, to maybe allow me to lease for such a purpose that's not too far from my home, it defeats the purpose if I have to drive miles away.
Okay, ma'am. The question though was, are you going to have people visit? And the answer is no.
No, I'm not.
Okay.
Okay, but you did mention school kids coming out.
I was saying that was
Right.
mentioned to me. I didn't, that's not my
Oh, okay.
suggestion. Somebody just thought the idea was so great that it could easily turn into like a school program or something, because it's permaculture as well as what it is I'm trying to do for my son.
Okay.
Right, and I know we have a miniature horse that we take into
Right.
various facilities for therapy, but I also
But that's
know-
not what I'm looking to do.
Right, I understand that, but I also understand, keeping animals, you need to have adequate space, and I agree with Commissioner Burrell that 4,000 square feet and 3 sheep and 3 goats is a little intense for this area.
And John's recommendation was 1 and 1? I forget now.
It was one and one.
One of each, okay. All right,
Dwarf, goat, and sheep.
right. So I'll entertain a motion.
No more comments?
No.
Okay. Well, first of all, Ms. Ferguson, I have to tell you that your case for the 4 hens is probably, in 9 years sitting up here, the first case for chickens in a platted subdivision that I approved. So everybody up here knows how I feel about chickens in a platted subdivision. However, you made a good case, and you haven't caused any issues. So, and you just got a renewal for 2 years today. I would like to make a motion, approval for 1 dwarf goat and 1 sheep for 12 months.
Okay,
And then the fees can be waived next year when you come back to see how it goes. But, I commend you for wanting to do what's best for your son. And I hope it all works out, and
okay. Do we have a second?
that's my motion.
Do you have a second? I'll second the motion. Any other discussion? Call the question. Passes 4-1 with Commissioner Rott in opposition.
Oh, my goodness.
Okay,
What is,
all right, and now we're back to OB 64.
Correct.
All right, and the question to Mr. Moore is, does the applicant that you're representing understand and agree with the new stipulations?
Yes, we reviewed them and we are in agreement with
Okay.
the proposed changes, and
All right.
appreciate the commissioner allowing us to review that.
All right.
And for the record, my law partner is in support of this as a adjoining neighbor.
Okay, thank you, appreciate
To
it.
clarify what was said earlier.
So with that, I'll let Commissioner Gamble make the motion.
Okay, and then also just to clarify, this addresses Mrs. Carey's concern about the buffers that she brought up under comments as well. So I think we're all good. So
So you had a motion on the floor?
I had a motion on the floor.
Yeah.
Do I need to
I think I
restate it?
seconded it. I seconded it. Okay, so is there any further discussion? And I'll call that question. It passes 4-1 with Commissioner Rott in opposition. Okay, with that, we're adjourned.